Chapter 693. Kori Karasawa held her scabbard in a reverse grip, infusing her chi into it and retracting her wrist. Dragging a trail of dazzling light behind her, she struck her enemy in a half-stabbing, half-head-on fashion. Before the advent of the information age, countless warriors and swordsmen had lost their lives to the double dragon takedown of the Shinjai sect. But now, as long as it wasn't a hasty encounter and one was mentally prepared, the opponent would more or less be prepared for such changes. As expected, Lu Qing retracted his left arm and punched across his chest. His fist landed awkwardly on the scabbard with purple flames. Bam! Bam! 2 consecutive bangs and dazzling light scattered. Both of Kori Karasawa's attacks were firmly blocked. However, her heart was as calm as an ancient well. She didn't show the slightest sign of depression, as though she had already expected this. Clang! She bent her right elbow and swung it away. Her long saber slashed out at lightning speed. Its sharpness was bone-piercing. Wherever it passed, droplets of water formed in the air and vaguely formed clouds. This was the Flying Bird takedown, a weakened version of the Shinjai sect's Flying Dragon takedown. But when used by the current Kori Karasawa, its speed was almost on par with the Flying Dragon takedown Lu Qing had used when they first met. Boom! Lu Qing straightened his arm and punched upwards with his heavy fist. It landed on the saber and covered it in a layer of crimson red. That was then, and this was now. The current Lu Qing was even more different from the past. Boom! Kori Karasawa's scabbard followed closely behind. Her swallow return was tight and swift. It presented a ferocious momentum that was a stark contrast to her quiet, pretty image. Kaboom! 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 Kori Karasawa's chi pierced through the rainbow. Her blowfish ball and scabbard alternated swallow return, unleashing wave after wave of slashes. Yan Shaoling and the rest in front of the screen subconsciously held their breaths as their hearts raced. 3 swallow return, 4 swallow return, 5 swallow return. Kori Karasawa had exceeded her previous limits effortlessly. The gleam of her blade overlapped with each other, and it was hard to distinguish the two from the afterimages. The ball of light grew bigger and bigger. Lu Qing raised both of his arms. His fists were covered in purple flames. Like a machine with precise settings, he blocked continuously without missing a beat. He also borrowed the core technique of the ancestor of physical invulnerability of the 24 blizzard strikes. The more he blocked, the faster he moved. The more he hit, the fiercer he became. The temperature around him rose rapidly. Back then, he had been defeated by 4 return of swallows. Now, even 5 return of swallows, 6 return of swallows, and 7 return of swallows could not shake him in the slightest. Rumble. 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 Tang Zai's saber light continued to flow, and the swallow return seemed to be endless until his opponent collapsed. 7 return swallows, 8 return swallows, 9 return swallows. Kori Karasawa's 10th slash suddenly changed direction, her scabbard slashing vertically towards the space between her and Lu Qing. Bang! The airflow spread out instantly, forming a vacuum in the area. With the help of the pressure created by the imbalance, everything in the surroundings was thrown into the vacuum. Lu Qing also started to lean forward. Shinjai sect, vacuum extraction. Snap! Kori Karasawa's right hand paused for a moment, followed by an almost inaudible compressing sound. Vacuum extraction, followed by flying dragon extraction, was the sure-kill combo of the Shinjai sect. A ray of white light suddenly appeared, streaking across the horizon, leaving behind a cone-shaped cloud behind it. With an unavoidable speed, it slashed at Lu Qing's body. Lu Qing's silhouette was instantly distorted, shattering like a mirage. Kori Karasawa's gaze froze. He had already dodged when vacuum extraction took effect, leaving behind only an illusion. How did he fool my mind-eye? Rumble. It was only then that the sound of the saber light slicing through the air could be heard. The sonic boom created huge waves that slammed ferociously in a direction other than the attacker. As the drone's camera shook violently, the faint purple flames were like a wall, sticking close to the ground and burning towards Kaori Karasawa. Kaori Karasawa suddenly realized that the temperature around her was extremely high. Everything around her was distorted, like a mirage. Just breathing would burn her airway and cause injuries. A thought flashed through her mind, and she instantly understood why she was fooled. Unknowingly, Lu Qing had already used his home ground environment to complete the setup of the 8th move of the fire sect, Mirage, Suffocating Hell. Through the dual influence of reality and mind, he prevented himself from seeing through the illusion. With a sidestep, Kaori Karasawa shrank and dodged to the side, avoiding the burning of the faint purple flames. Just as she steadied herself, the hot air around her changed shape, outlining a navy blue silhouette. Lu Qing pulled back his shoulder, and his fist shot forward, rubbing against the air at high speed. It ignited the faint purple flames and landed heavily on his opponent's right shoulder. Kaori Karasawa didn't panic. The scabbard in her left hand shot out diagonally, swallowing the katana. She then let go of her right hand, allowing the hilt to take advantage of the momentum to crash into Lu Cheng's left fist. Clang! The tachi retracted back into the scabbard, perfectly fitting. Lu Cheng's fist exploded with flames and bounced off. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kaori Karasawa twisted her back, her right hand once again gripping the hilt of her katana. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She unsheathed her katana, changed her footwork, and slashed a few times at high speed. 8 bright and clear rays of light slashed at Lu Cheng from left, right, front, and back. It was like a giant snake with 8 heads attacking, biting, and frenzied. Shinjai Sek's profound move, Chaos of Yamada. At this moment, Lu Cheng seemed to be in the middle of a blooming lotus of light, with layers of petals rapidly closing in. Kaori Karasawa's attack wasn't over yet. After executing Chaos of Yamada, she jumped up, locked the hilt of her scabbard, held her katana with both hands, and slashed down against the wind. Her inner chi released a dazzling arc of light, sealing off the last possibility of her opponent's evasion. It was as though she could slice everything in her path in half. This was the most basic, and most unadorned move in Japanese kendo, downwind single slash. It was used at the right time, flawlessly. Lu Cheng's face was as calm as an ancient well. Instead, his eyes shone with interest and eagerness. His palms, burning with faint purple flames, suddenly clasped together when Chaos of Yamada struck, compressing all the flames into a tiny point. Bam! As he separated his palms, the flames exploded. The purple flames spread in all directions like a prairie fire, wearing down the 8 rays of light with terrifying heat and its own shockwaves. The first move of the fire sect, Prairie Fire. Clang! Lu Cheng took advantage of the momentum to raise his arms and clasped his palms together again, sandwiching Kaori Karasawa's tachi in the middle. It was so precise that it was as though he had rehearsed it dozens or hundreds of times. Poof, poof, poof. The remaining 8 rays of light landed on Lu Cheng's body, but they were already spent. They barely managed to cut through his clothes, but were easily neutralized by the swelling of his muscles and skin. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Caught in the middle, Kaori Karasawa's wrist vibrated rapidly, causing the blade to vibrate incessantly like a chainsaw. At the same time, she exerted strength in her back and pulled out a razor-like glow from her feet, kicking Lu Cheng's chest consecutively. However, as soon as Lu Cheng caught the fugu ball, he sent it outwards, causing Kaori Karasawa to fly backwards in midair. Her high-frequency vibrating blade could only cut through the air current, causing the razors she pulled out from her feet to hit empty air. He didn't chase after her. Instead, he strode forward at a moderate pace, gradually forming scarlet, faint purple, and finally blazing white around him. Afraid of being ambushed, Kaori Karasawa did a graceful somersault in midair, forcefully changing her direction and drifting a dozen meters away. Just as her feet touched the ground, Lu Cheng suddenly took a step forward and stomped down heavily. The mind's eye sensed something and Kaori Karasawa rolled sideways. Bam! Where she originally stood, the earth split apart, magma erupting. Scarlet red liquid shot out like a fountain, scattering in all directions. This was the combination of a physical invulnerability expert's ability to communicate with the heavens and earth and have the advantage of home ground. Seeing that Kori Karasawa hadn't gotten up from her roll, Lu Qing tensed his feet and extended his left leg again, communicating with the magma underground. Kori Karasawa was at the end of her rope and couldn't dodge anymore. She thrust her tachi in front of her and infused it with her own chi. Radiance flashed and the ground trembled for a while before calming down. There was no volcanic eruption. Shinjai sect, Xidagarba takedown. At this moment, Lu Qing was already in front of Kori Karasawa. Light blue and gold coalesced around him. The 5 flames were ready. He clenched his fist and punched downwards. 5 balls of fire of different colors gathered in a spiral. Kori Karasawa's pupils shrank. She didn't dare to take it head-on. She did a backflip and pulled out her katana, sending the chi ray towards Lu Qing from below. Lu Qing straightened his back and straightened his body. Using the explosion of the flame force in his body, he took 2 steps back and dodged the crescent-shaped blade accurately. The 5 flames that attempted to converge into one was just a feint. Scarlet, gold, and light blue flew out and blasted towards Kori Karasawa, who was doing a backflip. Boom! 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 Kori Karasawa gave it her all and continuously cast, shrink, to barely avoid the continuous bombardment. However, her senses were affected by the smoke and her respiratory tract was burned by the high temperature. She almost coughed out loud. At this moment, she heard a dignified ancient Chinese voice. Formation. The air around her froze. Kori Karasawa, who had dodged to the limit, was trapped in an invisible cage. She saw the blazing white and light purple balls flying towards her from behind and above Lu Qing. She clenched her teeth and tightened her grip on the handle of her katana. Snap! After a soft sound, a white glow broke through the cage and split the blazing white and light purple balls of fire into 2, causing them to fall to the sides. Rumble. The katana didn't hit Lu Qing, who had dodged in advance. It left a visible crack in the ground, followed by a sonic boom. Kori Karasawa, who had escaped danger, immediately changed directions. However, just as the sonic boom and shockwave subsided, she realized that Lu Qing was following her like a shadow. She heard another mysterious ancient voice. Confrontation. With her fighting spirit gone, Kori Karasawa felt as though she had returned to the Shinjai sect dojo. She felt as though she was arranging flowers and making tea. She felt as though she was looking at a Buddha statue and calming her heart. She stopped in her tracks and sheathed her katana, not wanting to draw it. However, such a state of mind was compatible with her usual training. Mind's eye was maximized and her enemy appeared clearly. This is an opportunity. Without killing intent, his premonition will be slower. Kori Karasawa maintained her meditative state, slowly and discreetly compressing her chi, muscles, and tendons. She was going to use the flying dragon takedown on her ambushing opponent to determine victory. After the confrontation formula, Lu Qing's hand seals changed slightly. He changed the ancient word and shouted in a low voice, "Attainment." Following which, light blue flames spewed out from his back and feet. He appeared in front of Kori Karasawa in a flash as though he was teleporting. He was so fast that it was jaw-dropping. Attainment formula plus jet counterattack. Bam! Lu Qing extended his right hand and grabbed the handle of Kori Karasawa's katana, stopping her flying dragon takedown before it could be released. Bam! Under Kori Karasawa's stunned gaze, Lu Qing threw a punch with his left hand, landing on the arm that his opponent had hurriedly let go of her katana and raised to block. After using flame force for so long, the cold tide, which was close to losing its balance, gushed out wildly and sealed Kori Karasawa in ice within the transparent wall. Although it was quickly melted by the surrounding high temperature, it did slow Kori Karasawa down for a moment. In a battle of physical invulnerability, victory was decided in a matter of moments. Lu Qing swung his left elbow and his fist bounced up, landing right in front of her forehead. Kori Karasawa was momentarily stunned. She couldn't understand what was going on, but that name sounded familiar. Lu Cheng wins. Chapter 694. Kori Karasawa had plenty of experience in arena matches. Although she didn't understand the referee's words, she knew exactly how the situation played out. She loosened her muscles and tendons that hadn't had the time to unleash their full power, allowing her gathered chi to dissipate. She arched her back and bowed solemnly. "Thank you for your guidance, Lu." With that, she didn't care if he understood what she meant. She picked up the katana in her scabbard and headed for the Guanwai League changing room. Her mind was in a mess. To a samurai famed for her swordsmanship, it was humiliating to be interrupted and sheathed her katana. Especially when it happened between a samurai of the same level. If it had been a few decades or centuries ago, committing suicide by disembowelment would have been a logical choice. The Shinjai sect wouldn't pursue such extremes, but it wasn't uncommon for them to sit in front of Buddha and distance themselves from pleasure. They would train their body and mind in a masochistic manner in hopes of cleansing themselves. In the recent few decades, such spirits had long faded away, leaving only remnants of their influence. However, that wasn't an excuse to accept with a clear conscience. She had made two mistakes when Lu Cheng held her katana hilt and prevented her from pulling it out. First of all, he had never used the attainment formula in combination with his self-created jet technique. No one would have thought that he could be so fast. It was a stark contrast to Meng Qi's flying dragon takedown, which he had deliberately slowed down in preparation for the flying dragon takedown in order to hide his killing intent and his premonition. However, this wasn't an absolute reason. Based on the fact that Meng Qi had mastered the attainment formula and created his own jet technique, it was reasonable to assume and take precautions in advance. Second, his confrontation formula had indeed allowed her to dissipate her fighting spirit and lose her impatience. It was as though she had returned to the Buddhist temple where she cultivated her mind's eye and entered the Shinjai realm that only her master possessed. She had the ability to reduce the premonition of flying dragon takedown and surprise her opponent. However, thinking about it now, Lu Cheng hadn't made a mistake that gave her an opportunity. He had predicted such a situation and did it on purpose. In other words, after she was influenced by her opponent, she thought she had found a loophole in her opponent's trap and found a way to counterattack. However, she had actually fallen into the second trap that he had carefully prepared. It was because of the feeling of imminent victory that she had forgotten to be wary of Lu Cheng's double-stacking speed. If that wasn't the case, even if she lost, she wouldn't have lost so quickly. Her fukunaru wouldn't have been pressed back into its scabbard. "I'm so stupid." Kori Karasawa couldn't help but blame herself after she understood. Her heart was filled with an inexplicable grievance, but it was suppressed by her powerful spirit, so she didn't show it. She just pursed her lips tightly. "Wow, Kori-chan's aggrieved look is super cute." In the major forums in Japan, many similar words appeared in an instant. "My heart hurts. I want to comfort her. It's a pity that Kori-chan isn't like before. I remember when she was a teenager, if she lost, she would try to hold it in, but she wouldn't be able to hold back her tears. After all, he's already a divine ghost expert. I remember selling things like Tears of Hajime. Her opponent is really strong. He actually managed to push Kori-chan's knife back. It gives people the feeling of attacking from above and below. I've already reminded you that Lu Jun's growth is beyond your imagination. Too abnormal, too terrifying. He's not the only freak and terrifying expert in China. We have fallen behind by a lot, but those conservative and stubborn old men can't see it. Heavenly punishment, you old bastard." On the Chinese internet, similar discussions were everywhere. However, the words used to express their love were more direct. Phrases like kiss, hug, raise up could be seen everywhere. In the changing room of Longhu Club, Empress Luo stood in front of the glass window. Hearing the exclamations and cheers of the live audience, she took a deep breath and said, "He's indeed good at fighting. It's only been 6 or 7 months since he made the great leap. At this juncture, I'm afraid only Warrior Sage has done better than him in the past 20 to 30 years. Even Dragon King is at most on par with him." Lu Yan's tone was calm, but his evaluation of Lu Jun was quite high. Ning Zidong slowly turned her head and laughed out loud. Luckily Dragon King is recuperating. If he had heard what you said just now, we wouldn't be able to see Lu Qing getting beaten up every week. That day will come sooner or later. I'm wondering if he'll take the initiative to challenge me like Long Zhen. Lu Yan's lips twitched as he cracked a rare joke. Ning Zidong rubbed her temples and sighed. Why did we name it Longhu in the first place? Every time something like this happens, I'm reminded of the saying, 2 tigers can't live on one mountain. Beside her, Guojia stared outside with a complicated expression. There was a desire to chase after Lu Qing. Lu Qing winning against Kaori Karasawa was within expectations. However, no one expected him to win in such a manner. In the away team changing room, Zhu Xiaoyun, Li Pingao, Jing Shiduo, and the rest were silent. Only Lu Yongyuan's eyebrows twitched slightly. He stood up with the god-slaying saber that had turned the tables on the legendary twins. His expression was calm, and he seemed to be enjoying himself, just like when he saw the first spring rain last night. He didn't show any signs of worry, depression, or shock at Kaori Karasawa's defeat. Lu Yongyuan pushed open the door and walked out at a moderate pace. He saw the Japanese girl with a heavy expression and pursed lips. He smiled and nodded without a hint of blame. Then, he walked past her and towards the center of fiery hell. Kaori Karasawa's gaze followed his figure in a daze. For a moment, she had the misconception that she was the victor. Senior Lu's state of mind has improved again. Lu Qing stood where he was. The crimson lava beneath his feet flowed slowly in the crevices. Around him, flames spewed upwards. His eyes were locked on the leisurely Lu Yongyuan. Compared to last year's master battle, this god-slaying saber's aura was completely different. He no longer had the feeling of absorbing light from the heavens and earth and bringing dusk forward. He also no longer had the hair-raising feeling of a divine weapon pressing against his forehead. He was like a woodcutter with a full load or an elder deep in thought as he fished. He had an indescribable harmony with the heavens and earth, as though he was an integral part of the painting. The more restrained and natural he is, the more terrifying the sharpness of the saber when it is unsheathed. Lu Yongyuan has washed away his dust and found his true self. Thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He knew that his opponent had gotten stronger. During the master battle, Lu Yongyuan walked his own path and was in a state of impatience to test his saber. His sharpness was exposed and he was impetuous. But now, he had completely calmed down and returned to his original state. Only such a god-slaying saber could reach the realm of refining the head. Lu Yongyuan stopped where Kaori Karasawa was initially standing. He looked at Lu Qing. His chiseled features moved slightly, and he revealed a smile. This time, it won't be just 9 sabers. P.S. The fight wasn't organized properly, so I had to stop here. Fewer words. Chapter 695. Upon hearing Lu Yongyuan's declaration, Lu Qing was as calm as an ice lake. He replied politely, "Let's wait and see." As he spoke, he continued with his previous preparations. He restrained the ice soul and guided the flame force to form the last light blue fireball outside his body. It shone together with the blazing white, golden, crimson, and light purple colors that were circling around him. Against such a god-slaying saber, one couldn't be too cautious. Lu Yongyuan didn't care about Lu Cheng's reply. With his back facing the referee, he grabbed the hilt of his saber the moment his opponent raised his arm. Throughout the entire process, there was no change in his speed. It was the same from one second to the next. The spectators were shocked. When his slightly thick and slender fingers tightened and touched the surface of the hilt that was scorched by the high-temperature environment, his temperament suddenly changed. He was like a loaded gun, a missile that had a target, a divine weapon that had been erased of dust and removed of concealment. In the blink of an eye, the flames on the ground weakened and the lava flowed slowly. It was as though the heavens had been cut in half. Between the darkness, there was a bright and slender ray of light. Lu Cheng's hair stood on end. The referee's piercing voice rang in his ears. Begin. Lu Yongyuan took a leisurely step forward. The god-slaying saber was silently unsheathed. With this slash, Lu Qing felt as though the two of them had been separated from the world, forming a new independent world. This world was so small that the distance between them was only a few meters. Lu Yongyuan took a casual step forward and entered the attack range. The black and heavy saber came crashing down. The formless airflow boiled and turned into shackles that pressed down on his opponent, interfering with the rotation of the faint purple, golden, and other colors. 9 godly sabers, perimeter. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Using the profundity of this move, Lu Yongyuan easily imitated Kori Karasawa's shrinking ground. In fact, he even surpassed the speed of Kori Karasawa's shrinking ground. He was on par with the speed of Lu Cheng's attainment formula's combined jet spray. Compared to the battle of Grandmasters, his perimeter was obviously more sophisticated, more mysterious, and more advanced. Back then, Lu Cheng had used the complete fighting formula and the violence of his Dan Qi to forcefully break the rules and barely block this move. This time, he made the same choice, but the power was even more terrifying because he was using 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descend of the sun. Whoosh. Whoosh. The 5 flames glowed brightly, burning away the invisible bindings with a scorching heat. Then, as Lu Qing took a step forward, shook his arm, and swung his fist, they flew down and merged into one. Just as Lu Cheng's fist was about to land on the side of the god-slaying saber, the great sun condensed and was about to illuminate the land. Suddenly, the black saber trembled and bounced up. Then, it disappeared without a trace. 9 godly sabers, bladeless. This wasn't a move that was followed by another move. Instead, the changes of one move were followed by another move. What does it mean to do as one pleases and not overstep the bounds? This was it. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes, but it was too late to interrupt. The blazing light completely exploded. The audience either instinctively closed their eyes or temporarily lost their sight. All they could see was a vast expanse of whiteness. Following which, they felt the ground tremble. The bulletproof and heat-resistant glass shook, and they heard a deafening rumble. A deep crater appeared in front of Lu Cheng. Under the pressure, the magma flowing underground turned into a fountain. Lu Yongyuan was nowhere to be seen. With the help of the smoke and violent winds, he managed to hide from the enemy heart-freezing move. Flames flickered in his eyes. Lu Qing suddenly had a strong premonition of danger. Without hesitation, he turned his body halfway and visualized. Taking advantage of the situation, he pulled back his arm and swung it behind him. A long saber covered in dazzling light cut through the void and descended. Then, Lu Yongyuan's meticulous slicked back hair and slightly green eyes appeared. Wang! The god-slaying saber shook, and the light split into 8, slashing at various parts of Lu Cheng's body like a storm. The long saber, which had lost its dazzling light, was now dark. It maintained its previous trajectory and slashed downwards dangerously. 9 godly saber techniques, 9 in. At this moment, a layer of crystal appeared on the surface of Lu Cheng's body and rapidly spread outwards. Before the 8 saber rays could get close, they seemed to have fallen into a viscous liquid. Their radiance began to weaken and their speed gradually slowed. The closer they got to Lu Cheng, the thicker the viscous liquid. In the end, they even formed an ice wall. Kacha! 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 Amidst the shattering sounds, Lu Cheng's fist struck the black long saber. Poof! A muffled sound rang out. The god-slaying saber was slightly askew and slashed at empty space. Beautiful, clear snowflakes of various shapes formed on the surface of the saber. 8 wounds that were neither deep nor shallow appeared on different parts of Lu Cheng's body. The 8th move of the ice sect, frozen heaven and earth, everlasting. This move was both defensive and offensive. It could affect the surroundings, rapidly lowering the temperature, freezing the airflow, and neutralizing the opponent's attack. Wherever the opponent's fist or leg came in contact with, a small area would be frozen. Because of the ice spirit force hidden within, it wouldn't melt in a short period of time, severely affecting the opponent's movement. If it weren't for the fiery hell, Lu Qing wouldn't even be injured. Of course, if he didn't have a premonition of danger and rich experience in life and death battles, he would either not be able to use it in time or make the wrong decision to dodge. In that case, the 8 rays of light would have sealed off his path, and the god-slaying saber would have succeeded in one strike. The black saber landed on empty space, drawing a beautiful arc. Along with the ice and snow that hadn't melted, it retreated with greater force. Lu Qing was about to counterattack when he sensed danger again. This time, he suddenly pounced to the side. A bolt of lightning lit up. The airflow behind him formed a cone shape and expanded into clouds. Its speed was even faster than Kaori Karasawa's flying dragon takedown. 9 godly saber techniques, extreme electricity. Boom! Amidst the deafening explosion, Lu Qing's ears went against common sense. He closed his eyes and blocked most of the sound waves. Using the strong wind and waves, he rolled like a donkey and flipped like a sparrow hawk. He stood up again and widened the distance between them. However, Lu Yongyuan didn't stop to introduce his moves like he did in the master battle. Retracting his extreme electricity, he took a step forward and struck again with his saber, not giving his opponent any time to catch his breath. This strike was square and circle again, shortening the distance between them once more. The shackles of the rules pressed down on Lu Qing. Again. The thought flashed across Lu Qing's mind. Taking a deep breath, he hugged his lower abdomen with his mental strength, forming a miniature universe of balance between darkness and stars. The stars moved and the fighting formula formed. With the eruption of Dan force, he swelled up to 2 meters tall. His clothes outlined his muscles, and his exposed skin was dark blue. The flowing lines of flame and the shape of ice crystals and snowflakes could be vaguely seen under his skin. He looked like a giant older than the gods. Bam! 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 The shackles shattered inch by inch. Lu Qing twisted his waist and back, and his right fist flew out like a rocket launcher. Boom! Flames erupted from the ground, and the tongues tore at Lu Yongyuan's legs. The god-slaying saber was also knocked back. After that punch, the flame force in Lu Qing's body exploded, allowing him to exert strength for a second time. Charging forward, he closed in on his opponent in an instant. His left fist, covered in purple flames, swung diagonally upwards, aiming for his opponent's chin. Lu Yongyuan's expression was as calm as the water in a deep pool. Without any change, he lowered his shoulders and pulled the god-slaying saber again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. He swung the 8 strokes continuously, blocking his opponent's attacks one after another. Bam bam bam. Lu Qing swung his fists, smashing, hammering, and swinging. Every strike was heavy and hot as he pressed forward crazily. Lu Yongyuan's 8 strokes seemed to be endless. Lu Qing's violent attacks were like the scorching sun in the sky. No matter how strong or terrifying they would eventually be swallowed by the darkness. 9 godly saber techniques, dusk. After a series of attacks, Lu Qing, who had some poison in his body, had to take a breather. Lu Yongyuan, on the other hand, did the same sluggish action as if he was looking in a mirror. Not good. Sensing danger again, Lu Qing shifted his center of gravity, swung his waist, and pounced. Another bolt of lightning illuminated the earth fire, and a cone-shaped air mass was ejected out. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan's body sank, and his wrists became heavier. He forcefully interrupted the extreme electricity, stopping the god-slaying saber halfway. Boom! Amidst the sound of the explosion, the long saber bounced up and fell abruptly. It was like a real, bearing lightning bolt or a spear from the gods in the sky thrusting towards the ground. 9 godly saber techniques, heavenly spear. Another forced change of moves. Bam! Before Lu Qing could stabilize himself, he was enveloped by the saber. In a hurry, he could only respond with severe warning. His fists flew up, and his arms and body were covered in a layer of ice armor. To him, he could already execute simplified physical invulnerability moves quickly. Boom! The long saber paused, and Lu Qing staggered. The ice armor shattered inch by inch. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan turned his arm and made a charging gesture. All of a sudden, darkness appeared and absorbed all the light in the surroundings. All Lu Qing saw was darkness, all he heard was silence, and all he felt was emptiness. The last move of 9 godly saber techniques, eternal silence. Last time, Lu Qing had to rely on the 9 words formula to break through his opponent's mental suppression and block the saber. He also relied on Lu Yongyuan's, too slow. The long saber's speed was too slow, and there was still room for recovery if he made a mistake in judgment. Now that the god-slaying saber had made a comeback, it had probably overcome its shortcomings and was hiding a change that targeted the 9 words formula. Facing this, Lu Qing didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, there was a hint of joy in his eyes. This was the moment he was waiting for. Waiting for Lu Yongyuan to execute eternal silence. Logically speaking, even if he hadn't fought Kaori Karasawa, he wouldn't have much of a chance of winning against Lu Yongyuan, who was close to the level of Dragon King or Warrior Sage. Through the combination of martial arts and cultivation, the Dan into equilibrium, and the cosmic universe style, Lu Qing had almost reached the level of a second pin when he had just mastered the unique skills of the Ice Sect and Fire Sect. When he mastered both, coupled with the experience of life and death battles in the war-torn zones, and his own insights, he wouldn't dare to say that he was a first pin, but he would have a 30% to 40% chance of defeating a mighty one of the same level. Unfortunately, Lu Yongyuan wasn't just a first pin. He was a mighty one with titles, the King of Sabers who had improved. Therefore, after the battle with Kaori Karasawa, he could only consider how much he could exhaust his opponent. However, if he only thought about exhausting his opponent, he would be restrained and unable to unleash his full potential. Therefore, Lu Qing set a grand goal to motivate himself to work hard. This goal was to defeat him. Defeat the god-slaying saber, Lu Yongyuan. This wasn't completely hopeless. There was still a tiny possibility. It could be that what he had comprehended from the restriction sect, clear jade chapters happened to counter Lu Yongyuan's self-created strongest move, eternal silence. In the silent darkness, Lu Qing lowered his center of gravity. His feet were in the air, and he lifted his right hand clumsily. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Chapter 696. Lu Qing raised his arm and clenched his fingers into a fist. The center of his palm was dim and dazzling. It was as though he was grabbing a part of the starry sky and the universe. It was deep, magnificent, vast, distant, and contained infinity. Bam! He pulled his shoulders and pressed his palms down. The darkness around him collapsed and shattered inch by inch. Brilliant light that reflected the light of the fire radiated from the cracks. The sky at night seemed to have countless holes that even Nuwa couldn't fix. The dark and heavy god-slaying saber was about to land on Lu Qing. It was at least twice as fast as the Grandmaster battle. However, it was attracted by the darkness in his palm. It moved upwards and collided with it. It was as though it had fallen into a whirlpool and approached a black hole. This was what Lu Qing had grown by using his cosmic universe style as the soil after comprehending the restriction sect. Clear jade chapter. Self-created unique skill, tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth. The outstanding combination of mental attack and physical strength contained the will of big destruction, which was a perfect counter to moves like heaven and earth in one's own, such as Lu Yongyuan's square and circle, or eternal silence, which was stronger than square and circle and required more mental strength. Boom! Lu Qing's palm landed heavily on the long saber. However, there was no sound of metal clashing. The air billowed and the noise was deafening. It completely destroyed the darkness. Buzz! 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 The god-slaying saber bent softly at first. Then, it suddenly straightened and vibrated at high speed. It was as though it was a wounded beast that let out cries of agony. Such a violent reaction affected his mental strength. Lu Yongyuan, who was feeling dizzy, almost lost his grip on the saber. He channeled dark sky force and exerted force with his 5 fingers to stabilize himself. However, the web between his thumb and index finger had already split open. Blood dyed the handle red. Furthermore, the bones, tendons, and muscles of his wrist, forearm, and arm were aching, temporarily affecting his movements. This was the first time he was injured since the start of the match. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't let go of this opportunity that he had been waiting for. The follow-up combo that he had practiced countless times in his mind turned into instinct. His left leg strangely stepped forward and landed at the same level as the god-slaying saber. His muscles, tendons, and form gave off the feeling of being twisted to the extreme, like a wound spring. Bang! Lu Qing shook his left arm and raised his palm. Internally, he was receiving the burst of strength and the surge of spirit. Externally, he was receiving the blessings of heaven and earth as well as inertia. Rumble. His left palm fell from the sky, and the center of his palm was once again dotted with brilliant darkness. Tilting heaven northwest, sinking earth southeast. Double hit. Of course, in order to seize the fleeting opportunity, Lu Qing didn't fully visualize it like he did just now. Instead, he used his footwork and physical skills to exert force and make up for the power, which was a little less effective. This was something that couldn't be helped. When facing an expert at Lu Yongyuan's level, even a moment of delay could turn the situation around or get him out of danger. Therefore, as soon as there was a chance, one had to crazily chain attacks. If one couldn't continue to chain attacks and still hadn't won, and hadn't severely injured the opponent, then one who had fought a battle beforehand and whose strength was weaker could basically admit defeat. The light in front of Lu Yongyuan's eyes dimmed as the airflow exploded. Lu Yongyuan, who couldn't wield his blade with his right hand, saw the enemy's palm as though it was collapsing the heavens and the earth. Even with his state of mind and his willpower, he couldn't help but feel small and weak. Fortunately, he still had his left arm and his scabbard. Bam! Lu Yongyuan held the upper end of the scabbard and slashed out, hitting Lu Cheng's left palm accurately. Using offense as defense. Boom! Tiny spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the dark green scabbard. Lu Yongyuan's muscles trembled as he pulled his arm back. His right leg tightened as he was about to pull forward, not passively defending. At this moment, Lu Qing lowered his center of gravity and channeled the rebounding force into his right leg, cracking the ground. Bam! Where Lu Yongyuan stood, a volcano erupted and flames spewed out crazily. If he hadn't sensed the commotion deep inside and forcefully changed his whip leg into a back kick, taking advantage of the momentum to leap away, he would have been engulfed by the flames and suffered serious injuries. Lu Cheng's third hit in the combo. Home field advantage. With this retreat, Lu Yongyuan immediately executed his dark sect footwork. It was as though he had transformed into a long blade, shaking out countless afterimages with many hidden changes. Sometimes left, sometimes right, sometimes front, sometimes back, sometimes jumping, and sometimes crouching on the ground to avoid the pursuit, trying to increase the distance between them. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't allow him to regain his composure. His wind made use of the flames to sweep forward. Relying on the lock of enemy heart-freezing move, he barely managed to keep up with Lu Yongyuan's turn. However, his movements weren't as smooth as Lu Yongyuan's. The distance between them slowly but surely widened. At this moment, his right palm grabbed a ball of faint purple and launched it towards Lu Yongyuan, who had predicted his next move. Lord Emperor's Purple Flame. Boom! 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 Lu Qing attacked left and right. Sometimes he fired a cannon, sometimes he stuck close to the ground and burned. He wasn't afraid of making a mistake in his judgment and was using quantity to make up for it. As for the fact that this would consume a lot of energy and couldn't be maintained for long in his current condition, he didn't care. If this combo couldn't finish Lu Yongyuan off, then it wouldn't matter how much fire force he had left. Of course, this was also in preparation for what would happen next. Boom! 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 Lu Yongyuan was surrounded by smoke and flames. Even though he wasn't hit directly, his footwork was affected. The breath he had forcefully gathered was about to dissipate, and his footsteps started to slow down. A thought flashed across his mind. Lu Yongyuan took a deep breath and made a forced concentration. It was as though he was trying to relieve the soreness and pain he had felt earlier. Seeing him pause, Lu Qing didn't hold back. Faint blue flames gushed out from his back, and in an instant, he was right in front of his opponent. But at the same time, Lu Yongyuan's figure dimmed, as though he had turned into a shadow. He was blown away by the wind, as though he was weightless. Lu Cheng's sudden attack missed. He waved his arm anxiously and pulled out a ball of purple flames, which he threw at the shadow. Boom! A crater immediately appeared. Lu Yongyuan dodged with a strange posture, and his dimming figure quickly faded away. He finally stopped. He hurriedly gathered his qi, blood, force, mind, and other negative effects in his dantian, trying his best to recover the movement of his arms. Phew, I almost couldn't continue. Lu Qing thought for a moment. His qi and blood directly stimulated a certain part of his body, and he executed the simplified attainment formula. Bam! Faint blue flames gushed out from his back and feet again, propelling him across the distance between them. He blinked in front of Lu Yongyuan and threw a punch. Lu Yongyuan's eyes turned black as his dan qi expanded his body. The god-slaying saber swung upwards at a mysterious and swift speed towards Lu Cheng's fist. The tip of the saber was dark and restrained, but it was even more terrifying. Lu Cheng's movements didn't slow down, and there was no hesitation in his eyes. His left fist, which wasn't covered by the purple flames, struck the saber. Splat! The sound of the blunt saber cutting into flesh rang out. The god-slaying saber cut through his skin, muscles, and fascia, and into his white finger bones. But there was an obvious pause, as though it was stuck there. No, it wasn't stuck. It was because it had already cut through the solid ice wall. It was because the saber was covered in a thick layer of crystal. It was because the frost had spread and sealed Lu Yongyuan in ice. Self-created unique skill, Lament of the Ice Queen. Lu Qing had used so much fire force just now to create a temporary and extreme imbalance between ice and fire. He wanted to simulate a universe without stars and to simulate the terrifyingly low temperature. He didn't need to prepare anything else, nor did he need to surround himself with 5 flames. That was how he could use it. Using it cleverly depended on his heart. Crack! The ice coffin that sealed Lu Yongyuan didn't even last a second. Cracks appeared everywhere, as though it had been cut by countless saber glints. Lu Cheng, who didn't stop his combo, retracted his left fist covered in blood-colored frost. It was as though gunpowder had been ignited in his body. His right fist turned into a cannon and blasted towards his enemy. That wasn't all. He didn't care about the injuries on his left fist and arm. Using them as weapons, he followed up with a punch using his shoulder as a driving force. Bam! 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 Lu Qing used the internal eruption of Emperor Yen force to increase the speed of his punches. He threw 8 punches in the gaps between the moves of the other physical and vulnerability experts. He was so fast that the audience thought he had 4 arms. If only my Orochi could reach this level, thought Kori Karasawa, who couldn't take her eyes off the fight. To be able to force Senior Lu to this extent, Lu Qing has really left me in the dust. Bam! 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 The ice coffin shattered completely. Lu Yongyuan, who was still feeling cold, faced Lu Cheng's frenzied attacks. His god-slaying saber and scabbard moved horizontally and vertically, up and down. Even though he was slightly slower, he blocked the 8 consecutive punches purely with his saber techniques and judgment. Bam! Lu Qing suddenly bent his knees, arched his back, and pounded his fists on the ground like a madman. Lu Yongyuan felt the pressure lessen. Just as he was about to take advantage of the situation and switch from defense to offense with Heavenly Spear, his expression changed as he sensed the madness underground. With this attack, Lu Cheng was going to detonate the fiery hell within a few dozen meters, draining most of his home field advantage. Left, right, forward, backward, I'll be hit by the lava. Even with Dark Sky's protection, I'll only be able to withstand it for a short while. It's inevitable that I'll be severely injured. Next up, I'll have to face Empress Luo. Thoughts flashed through Lu Yongyuan's mind. He jumped up high, his legs shrouded in darkness and hard to see. Boom! Other than where Lu Cheng was, the ground within a 30-meter radius caved in. Flames, lava, and dust spewed high into the air. The sky was first crimson red, then turned gray. The fountain surged for an unknown number of meters before finally running out of momentum. It spilled downwards, but it failed to engulf Lu Yongyuan. It merely tore at his ankles and below for 2 seconds. The darkness faded, and his shoes and socks turned to dust. Lu Yongyuan was about to unleash his blade aura towards the lava to cross the volcano when his surroundings suddenly turned dark. It was so dark that it felt like the depths of the universe. It was extremely cold. In the distance, stars moved one after another, maintaining balance. Lu Cheng's previous attack was both to detonate the accumulated energy underground and to prepare for his follow-up combo. Universe Phantom. He straightened his back, raised his hands, and stood up abruptly. Lu Yongyuan first turned into a bug in a transparent amber. Then, he saw the stars coming at him one after another. I've won, right? Lu Cheng was exhausted from the combo. He looked up at the sky, waiting for the result. Boom! 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 The ice coffin exploded, and more stars came at Lu Yongyuan like a net. Seeing that the intense explosions were about to happen, a ray of light slashed out, and darkness surged, enveloping the specks of light. There was no sound, no light. The 9th move of the Dark Sect, Dark Devouring Sun, Descent of Eternal Night. This was also the blueprint for the last move of Lu Yongyuan's 9 godly sabers, Eternal Silence. However, compared to Eternal Silence, which hadn't been perfected, this killer move of the Dark Sect was obviously more complete. SSS. Lu Cheng gasped. He didn't expect Lu Yongyuan to use this move without any preparation. If he had done so earlier, wouldn't he have won long ago? Looks like he wouldn't use it so easily. He would have to pay a hefty price. In a breath, the darkness was torn apart like a curtain. Faint rays of light fell and were swallowed by the lava. Lu Yongyuan's figure appeared. His hair was still neat, but his clothes were in tatters. The god-slaying saber was trembling non-stop. He seemed to have lost his strength temporarily and fell straight down. There was no ground below him, only the undulating and slowly flowing crimson lava. Lu Cheng narrowed his eyes and raised his right hand with difficulty. At this moment, Lu Yongyuan recovered. His figure dimmed, and he turned into a shadow again. His fall slowed significantly. Following that, he was about to slash at Lu Cheng's location and use the recoil to change direction. He seemed to still have a lot of strength left. However, a majestic purple color appeared in his eyes. He saw a heavy and terrifying fireball condensing in front of Lu Cheng's right palm. If such an attack comes, I can only take it head-on since I can't change direction in time. The result of that is to lose the opportunity to slash at him, change direction, and cross the lake of lava. I will fall into it. Even if I can use Dark Sky to protect myself, under such circumstances, there is a 50% chance that I won't be able to survive. There is a 50% chance that I will be severely injured and will barely be able to crawl to the ground on the side. Lu Yongyuan's eyes turned cold. He sheathed his saber and kicked off with the back of his foot. He slashed at the isolated island where Lu Cheng was. Using the recoil, he floated back and landed on the lake 20 to 30 meters away like a kite. During this process, Lu Cheng didn't use Lord Emperor's purple flames. He drained his Lord Emperor's purple flames because Lu Yongyuan's answer was to return the god-slaying saber to its scabbard. The referee didn't hesitate. He raised his right hand and shouted, "Second round, Lu Cheng wins." Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that he was on his last legs. Without waiting for Lu Yongyuan to speak, he cupped his hands and smiled. Thank you, senior. With that, he turned and left. He walked towards the Longhu Club changing room with light steps. Just like Lu Yongyuan, he floated away after 9 slashes. P.S. This chapter is close to 4,000 words, so it's late. Consider it as making up for yesterday's chapter with fewer words. Chapter 697. Did he win? In the Guanwai League changing room, Kori Karasawa stood by the glass window. Her clear eyes were wide open. She felt that the referee's announcement of the match and Lu Cheng's departure formed a strange contrast. In her heart, Lu Yongyuan was the world's strongest master in the field of swordsmanship. He was one of the few who stood at the pinnacle. She would have to spend 10 or 20 years to reach his level, or even never reach it. Her thoughts did not only come from what she had heard, but also from her own experience. Ever since she joined the Guanwai League, the sparring sessions had proven this without a doubt. Even if there were times when Lu Yongyuan was not attentive enough and did not have the energy to do so, the details that were presented were still breathtaking. But now, the god-slaying saber had lost. He had lost to Lu Qing, who had been weaker than her a few years ago. The strength of the god-slaying saber wasn't a lie. His recent improvement was obvious to all. So where did the problem lie? Lu Cheng's improvement was too scary. It was so scary that it felt surreal. Kori Karasawa wasn't the only one who felt this way. The internet was flooded with similar Weibo posts and posts. Even in unrelated places, there were many posts expressing strong emotions such as, what the F***ck, and, is it morning? In the room of an unknown commentator, the bullet screen flashed one by one, almost covering the handsome face of the commentator. Damn, the god-slaying saber lost? I have something to say, but I don't know if I should. 666666, I want to shout out to everyone here, what is impossible? Even though he has the home field advantage, isn't this a little too exaggerated? Lu Qing just fought with Kori Karasawa. Honey, come out and see God. Does anyone want to place a bet with me? Bet that Lu Qing will get a title within 3 years. I have a bold idea. I'm not listening. Scram. Looking at the comments, the unknown commentator, Kai Zhongming, laughed secretly. He cleared his throat, intending to speak up for a certain guy. Have you all forgotten? The god-slaying saber's special skill is unexpected failure. No matter which physical invulnerability expert he loses to, or wins against, don't be surprised. As soon as he finished speaking, an eye-catching green message flashed across the screen, friendly support. Yan Shaoling has something to say. I feel that the god-slaying saber was very serious today. Yes, that's it. Damn, you can even see that? Kai Zhongming was rendered speechless. But come to think of it, even a pig, after watching so many martial arts competitions for so many years, would be able to tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Although Yan Shaoling often made stupid mistakes, such as going to get the express delivery and returning to the dormitory with a bag of snacks, it wasn't to that extent. As this thought flashed through his mind, Kai Zhongming immediately gritted his teeth. He had clearly asked this girl to organize some people to support and increase his popularity, but she actually ruined his plan? Thinking quickly, student Xiao Ming was quick-witted. He organized his thoughts and said, carelessness and underestimation don't only refer to the competition, but also the preparation before. The god-slaying saber was indeed fully focused and used all he had learned, but he obviously wasn't on guard against Lu Cheng's sudden killer move. Isn't this a sign of not paying enough attention and not understanding more? It's just like when we were studying. Other than a few who have already become immortals and don't care about grades, most people are still very focused and serious during exams. Whether it's doing the homework by themselves, passing notes, asking questions in the competition, or asking for help outside the competition, they've done their best. But what about before the exam? How many of the students actually did their revision in earnest? How many students didn't get distracted in class, didn't whisper to each other, and listened attentively to the end, understanding everything completely. Speaking of which, I remember a student who was very serious during exams. But on the day of the exam, he didn't even know what he was going to be tested on. He even missed the time. The god-slaying saber situation is similar to this. After Kai Zhongming finished speaking, seeing that no one refuted and that most agreed with him, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He was deeply impressed by his improvisation. TSK, no one noticed the loophole in my logic. They were all reminded of their beautiful memories or their youthful lives. Lu Yongyuan wasn't on guard against the killer move because he didn't pay enough attention and didn't understand his opponent well enough. It's more likely that he didn't know. Based on my understanding of Cheng, this is his latest invention and he hasn't used it before. When my eloquence is strong, even I find it terrifying. At this moment, another audience member asked, didn't the god-slaying saber admit defeat too easily? In that situation, he still had the strength to fight back. This is a difficult question, but it's not a problem for me. Kai Zhongming chuckled and quickly switched to another interface. He skimmed through the relevant answers of the professional commentators to verify his own opinion. This was what he had been doing before, so he didn't delay for more than a few seconds before explaining. The situation just now was a game, a variant of the prisoner's dilemma. Sigh, some students said that it wasn't at all, but in my opinion, it's all the same. Don't worry about these details. The situation back then was that if Lu Yongyuan used his saber aura first and used the recoil to escape from the magma, Lu Qing could take advantage of the time when he had used up all his energy and hadn't regenerated enough to shoot him down with Lord Emperor's purple flame, not giving him a chance to use his saber aura and recoil. However, if Lu Yongyuan wanted to wait for Lu Qing to make the first move and use his saber aura to split the purple flame and block and recoil, he would have to wait patiently for his opponent to make the first move. Lu Qing could wait, but Lu Yongyuan couldn't. If he waited any longer, he would fall into the magma. The only way to escape was to have the ability to change direction a few times in midair. Lu Yongyuan did it twice before, but after using Dark Devouring Virokana, Descent of Eternal Night, it seemed like he couldn't use it for a while. After such a game, it was natural for him to admit defeat. Wow, the host is so professional. Good analysis. He's my idol. He's so handsome. He's so funny. As the bullet screen slid past, Kai Zhongming couldn't help but cover his face. Yan Shaoling, what kind of people did you find? Isn't this a little too exaggerated? I was wrong. I actually believed that you could do it well. At this moment, the poison milk hierarch, Yi Xiaowei, who had been in a daze since the end of the competition, finally came to his senses. He realized that the cup of water he was drinking wasn't aimed properly and had wet his chin and clothes. I was wondering why it was so cold. Yi Xiaowei put down the cup and took a few pieces of tissue paper to wipe it clean. After he was done, his eyes flashed with residual shock and gradually increasing excitement. He began to consider the content of his Weibo post. When the legendary twins stepped onto the stage of physical invulnerability, I was still a child. Yes, a child of 18 or 19 years old. I didn't have enough clarity and maturity, but now, am I witnessing the dawn of a new era? The Wisdom King who had already won 2 titles, Lu Cheng who was improving at a terrifying speed, Peng Liyun and Ren Li who were desperately trying to catch up, King of Swords and the others who were gradually fading out of the professional scene, Dong Baxian and Lu Yongyuan who were still in their prime, Dragon King and Warrior Sage who had been on the verge of a breakthrough for a few years. After a moment of silence, Yi Xiaowei typed a few words in the box. We can look forward to Lu Qing getting a title in the next year or two. I'm witnessing the dawn of a new era. Standing at the edge of the lava lake, Lu Yongyuan watched Lu Cheng's back as he left. He narrowed his eyes slightly and hid all his emotions. He must have used what he learned from the restriction sect, clear jade chapters. If I had seriously asked my friends in the military, even if I couldn't figure out what he learned, I would have known that he was qualified to learn the restriction sect, clear jade chapters. I would have been on my guard, but no matter what, he's already an opponent I have to take seriously. After a while, Lu Yongyuan, with his meticulous hairstyle, turned and walked towards the away team's changing room. Under the illumination of the flames, his back seemed bleak. The closer Lu Qing got to the Longhu changing room, the weaker he felt. If he hadn't defeated Kori Karasawa so quickly, he would have lost. Amidst the cheers, he saw the martial arts fanatic, Guojia, walking out quickly with a disappointed expression. In the changing room, Empress Luo shook her head helplessly. She said to Coach Lu Yen, "Your plan is ruined." What? Lu Yen didn't react immediately. Ning Zitong's lips twitched. You said that you wanted her to go on stage under pressure to train. Well, there's no pressure now. Guojia and Zhu Xiaoyun were both second pin. Even if they were slightly weaker and lost the match, there were still big shots behind them. Lu Yen fell silent. After a long while, he muttered to himself, "How would I know this would happen?" Chapter 698. After exchanging a nod with Lu Qing, Guojia walked towards the edge of the magma lake under the protection of the underground fire. The nervousness in her heart was long gone. It was even worse than when she participated in the title match. It was closer to being arranged to fight in an unimportant match. However, this didn't affect her yearning for matches. Challenging different opponents, witnessing different secret arts, and experiencing different styles had always been one of her hobbies. The nickname martial arts fanatic wasn't made up by others. How could there be no wind without a cause? In the changing room of the Guanwai League, Zhu Xiaoyun, who had a healthy weak complexion and a slender figure of average height, sighed and stood up slowly. Sister Xiaoyun, don't feel pressured, consoled Jing Shiduo, who was about 2 meters tall. It wasn't the first time Boss Lu had unexpectedly lost a match. We didn't expect you to win 1 versus 2, especially with Empress Luo, who was famous for her movement techniques. Zhu Xiaoyun put her finger to her lips and made a smile. I'm not feeling pressured. I'm just lamenting that the martial arts fanatic is indeed a martial arts fanatic. Other than practicing martial arts, competing, eating, and sleeping, it's all about practicing martial arts, competing, eating, and sleeping. I can't believe I didn't manage to collect any dark history of hers. It's going to be tough later. She collected dark histories of others for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was to satisfy her hobby of gossip. Secondly, it was to use it as material for her illusionary secret arts. Through targeted arrangements, she could improve the effect and pass off the truth as the truth. However, Guojia was so boring that she felt helpless. Without waiting for Jing Shiduo to say anything else, Zhu Xiaoyun cracked her neck and walked towards the changing room door. As she held the door handle, she turned around and looked at Li Pingao, whose eyelids shone with a metallic luster. She didn't know what he was thinking with his head lowered. I'm going to battle. You have to come out as soon as possible. You're the most promising one among us to become a first pin and enter the title match. When Guojia and Zhu Xiaoyun approached the magma lake, Lu Qing took the phone and specially made nutrient solution from Amen, who came from the glass room next door. As he gulped down the liquid, he pushed the door open and entered. Ning Zitong lowered her hands and stood beside the window. Glancing at him, she said in exasperation, "You want us to change our home ground this year? The Dragon King is like that, and so are you. You don't learn from the good and learn from the bad." Lu Qing turned back to look at the magma lake that was dozens of meters in radius. He laughed dryly and said, too forgetful, otherwise, he would not have been able to defeat the god-slaying saber." Of course, Sister Ning was not wrong. If similar explosions were to happen a few more times, this place would become a real magma lake decorated with stone pillars. At that time, it would be more beneficial for the warriors with outstanding body movements or the warriors who could travel in thin air, instead of the masters of the fire sect. Moreover, the danger level would increase exponentially. At this point, they had to find another main battlefield. There weren't many similar natural environments around Flower City. Well, 5 years ago, the previous home ground was ruined by the Dragon King. After hearing his reply, Ning Zitong spat. "Both of you are so good at tearing down houses. If you get the title of king in the future, I suggest you call yourself Demolition King." Lu Cheng was experienced and did not attempt to reason with Empress Luo or argue about his nickname. He only laughed and retreated back to his seat. He put the empty bottle of nutrient solution aside, turned on his phone, and looked at the compliments sent by his little fairy. He smiled happily and complacently as he said, covering his face and sighing expression, "I was criticized by Empress Luo as soon as I returned to the changing room. She said I'm an expert at tearing down houses." Because his left fist was severely injured, he put his phone on his lap and typed with one hand. Yan Zhika was still immersed in the excitement of her husband defeating the god-slaying saber at his peak. When she saw this, she was clearly stunned. Then, she pursed her lips, her dimples showing. Laughing out loud emoji, she replied, "No problem." This joke is so funny." Lu Cheng was slightly puzzled, but he quickly threw the thought to the back of his mind. He began to talk about the battle with Cuckoo. During the time, he controlled the details, healed his wounds, and bandaged them. At this moment, Guojia and Zhu Xiaoyun were standing at the edge of the magma lake. However, they did not look at each other through the water. The referee did not allow the staff to clean up the battlefield, and there was no way to do so. Without further ado, he raised his right hand and said, "Begin." Guojia was about to pounce forward and launch a ferocious attack. She practiced the fire sect, not the dark sect that Empress Luo was good at, when her vision blurred. To her surprise, she saw the graceful figure of the woman opposite her. Her footwork was ethereal and mysterious. "Master?" The thought flashed through her mind, and she was slightly stunned. This was her master, Empress Luo, Ning Zitong. After a moment of shock, Guojia, who had never fought with Zhu Xiaoyun before, quickly understood that this was an illusion created by her opponent. She was pretending to be her master to affect her performance. As her thoughts settled, the earth fire around Guojia suddenly surged. A strong wind blew, helping her to move faster and faster. A fist covered in flames punched out, hitting the claw of Ning Zitong that Zhu Xiaoyun had transformed into. Bam! The air current exploded. The figure rippled and soon shattered, like the bright moon in the middle of a lake that was thrown into a boulder. Fake. It's fake. A double trap. Guojia felt a chill from the side. She quickly bent her elbow and collided with a weak-colored fist that came silently. Physical invulnerability level absolute reaction. For the rest of the match, Guojia had a feeling that her eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and mind were all deceiving her. However, she remained steadfast. Focusing on defense and mixing in area of effect attacks, she managed to hold on for more than 10 minutes. She even put Zhu Xiaoyun in a difficult position a few times. Unfortunately, Zhu Xiaoyun was indeed a genius in illusion techniques. After a long battle, she seized an opportunity to use truth as illusion to deceive her opponent's senses. When it came to close-range attacks, Guojia finally reacted, but she couldn't keep up with her movements. Regretfully, she lost. In the changing room, Ning Zitong heaved a sigh and mumbled, "I really don't like competing with her. It always reminds me of my helplessness, awkwardness, and unwillingness to recall." If it were in ancient times, her style of exposing others' scars would have been ganged up on and beaten to death. Lu Yan's face darkened as he added, "Her only strength is that only she knows." So, what dark history do you have, Sister Ning?" Lu Cheng was curious, but he didn't dare to ask. He watched as Empress Luo sashayed out the door. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. He tilted his head and asked with interest, "Coach, did you let Guojia fight because you didn't want to face Zhu Xiaoyun? What dark history does she know about you?" Lu Yan's expression froze. He replied in a deep voice, "Why would I be afraid of her?" After that, he stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the arena. "I'm not afraid of her, but I'm afraid of myself." Lu Cheng laughed to himself. Looking at the big screen, he diverted some of his attention to heal his internal injuries. The last match was a foregone conclusion. Zhu Xiaoyun, who had expended a lot of energy, didn't last long before she was taken down by Empress Luo. The Longhu Club welcomed a new season of top-class professional matches. Of course, when Ning Zitong returned to the changing room, her face was a little sour. After a night of rest, Lu Cheng, who was in a good mood, returned to the club early in the morning, ignoring his injuries. He started his recovery training. At around 8 a.m., he entered the physical invulnerability cafeteria. While going from frugal to extravagant, he instructed Amen to get breakfast. At the same time, he browsed the web portal and Weibo to read the media reports and comments. As he scanned, he saw the headlines of the day. The new generation surpasses the old. The new Longhu Club king is confirmed. The student surpasses the master. The leader of the Longhu Club for the next 10 years has appeared. The new generation surpasses the old. The leader of the next 10 years. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched as thoughts flashed through his mind. These guys are up to no good. It's as though I'm trying to usurp the throne. Why the F***ck did I think of this sentence? Are you getting carried away? Or am I, the Dragon King, too weak to lift my blade? He subconsciously looked around and suddenly rejoiced. Luckily, the Dragon King is still recuperating in the hospital. In the Longhu-affiliated hospital, the Dragon King, Chen Chitao, was slowly practicing martial arts on the balcony in his hospital gown. In the room with a floor-to-ceiling window, his phone, newspaper, and other items were placed on the table. They were either showing or flipping to the news of the match between the Longhu Club and the Guanwai League. Chapter 699. Mr. Lu? Amen, who was carrying a basket of breakfast, called out nervously when she saw Lu Cheng's odd expression. Lu Cheng snapped out of it and put down his phone. He squeezed out a smile. Just put it down. Go get what you want. Amen nodded with a smile and left. Her professional credo was to never ask about things she shouldn't. Lu Cheng picked up a quicksand bun and took a bite out of it. Just as he was about to flip through the pages with one hand to look at the comments below the headlines, he saw Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, enter energetically in her white sportswear with a towel around her neck. You just started eating? Ning Zitong greeted him with a smile. Then she remembered something and said, Dragon King will only be back next week for recovery training. We'll still have to rely on you for the second round. Dragon King will only be back after some time? Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He subconsciously rubbed the corner of his mouth that was still hurting. Sister Ning, I'm fine. Really? You're going north to Zhaofeng to challenge Daxing Temple? Ning Zitong replied with a half-smile. She pulled a chair over and sat down. Damn, I forgot that Daxing Temple is our next opponent, and it's their home ground. Lu Cheng was stunned for a few seconds. He pretended to be calm and said, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Daxing Temple was a powerful force that could compete for the title of world number 1. Although they were slightly inferior to Longhu Club and Shangqing sect, they were not to be underestimated. Abbot Divine Monk Faiyuan was from the same generation as his master. He was 57 years old and practiced silent meditation. He had mastered thought steal and had won 2 titles in the past. Wisdom King Ji Hai was the most outstanding representative of the new generation of martial artists. He was not even 28 years old and had already won the Super Class and King titles. He was expected to start his own era. Living Buddha Sher Shan had mastered the mystery of reincarnation and was the toughest first pin fighter to deal with. This was basically the main lineup of 2 Super Class first pin players. Back then, the combination of a Dragon King, Empress Luo, and Optimus Prime was slightly better than them. However, after Long Zhen left, regardless of whether it was Coach Lu Yan or himself, they were still lacking by a little. Both sides were considered to be on the same level. Now that Dragon King was recuperating and the opponent was on their home ground, the difficulty was imaginable. You have a good attitude. Ning Zitong took a normal bowl of noodles from her assistant and chuckled. When the time comes, you can do whatever you want. After all, this isn't our home ground. You can tear it apart and destroy it however you want. How long would this joke last? Lu Qing complained in his heart and deliberately changed the topic. Sister Ning, why are you eating such a small bowl of noodles? The size of a normal person's rice bowl isn't even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. There are still a few bowls left. Ning Zitong ate a lot of noodles without making any noise. She pointed at her assistant, who was waiting in front of the noodle counter. Why don't we do it together? How convenient it is to use that kind of basin. Lu Qing casually added. Ning Zitong rolled her eyes at him. The noodles won't taste good if they're left out for too long. Besides, do you think I'm the kind of person who eats from a big bowl? Image, do you understand? Image. I'm a person who eats with a big basin. Lu Cheng was speechless for a moment. Zhaofeng City, Bodhi Mountain, Daxing Temple. The receptionist monk, Zhi Jing, stepped into the abbot's meditation hall. He put his palms together and bowed to the divine monk, Fa Yuan, who was sitting on a futon. Abbot, I have something to report. Fa Yuan was wearing a yellow monk robe and a red kasaya. He looked haggard. The corners of his eyes, mouth, and nose were sagging. However, there weren't any wrinkles on his face. His eyes were kind and calm, deep and profound. Everyone who looked at him could only see their own reflection. As soon as Zhi Jing finished speaking, he reached out and accurately pulled out a piece of paper from a stack of paper plates and held it horizontally in front of his chest. Written on it were 2 large black words and a question mark that stretched to its limits. What's the matter? Zhi Jing was already used to this pattern. After all, his abbot practiced silent Zen. He deliberated over his words and said, Abbot, the reporters who came today strongly requested to interview you. They have a direct line to Haizili. What's wrong with those people? Don't they know what silent Zen is? Fa Yuan didn't look surprised at all. It was as if he already knew. His eyes were filled with compassion. He took a blank plate and wrote a few words. Let Shi Shan and Ji Hai go. I still have homework to do. Yes, Abbot. I'll go find Ji Hai and Junior Shi Shan immediately. Zhi Jing looked at it carefully and put his palms together. Fa Yuan smiled slightly and pulled out another plate from the stack of plates. On it was written, I want supper, I want supper, I want supper. Zhi Jing's eyes widened as he stood there in a daze. Fa Yuan's eyebrows relaxed as if he understood something. He quickly threw the plate away and pulled out another one. On it was written, I asked Shi Shan to help me organize it. No wonder, the abbot wrote this in advance. He understood Junior Shi Shan's nature very well. Zhi Jing suddenly understood. Fa Yuan nodded slightly and pulled out a new plate from the original position. Good, good. The words were slightly ugly, like the scribbles of a child. It was a different style from before. Then I'll take my leave first. Zhi Jing held back his laughter and bowed. Fa Yuan picked up the plate on the top and wrote in a strict and majestic manner, Namo Amitabha. After Zhi Jing left the meditation room and closed the door, Fa Yuan hurriedly waved his sleeve and rolled up the plates, letting them fall down and show their contents. With a glance, he saw the printed, funny, emoji and the emoji. Underscore. His lips quivered a few times and almost opened. After leaving the abbot's meditation room, Zhi Jing looked at the sky and walked to the kitchen. Sure enough, he saw the fat and tall, living Buddha, Shi Shan staring into the kitchen, swallowing his saliva as if he couldn't wait any longer. Junior Shi Shan, the abbot has orders for you. Zhi Jing said with a smile. What is it? Shi Shan didn't turn his head. He wants you to accept an interview. Oh right, help me inform Junior Ji Hai. Zhi Jing went straight to the point. I'm not free. Shi Shan smelled the fragrance of the steamed buns and waved his hand. Zhi Jing put his hands behind his back and walked 2 steps. He laughed and said, this time, the reporter has a big background. We have prepared a lot of tea, fruits and snacks for him. They are all the best. Where? Shi Shan suddenly turned around. Clear Heart Courtyard. Ji Jing held back his laughter. They wanted to interview the abbot first. What kind of people are they? Don't they know that the abbot practices silent meditation? Oh right, Junior Shan, why do you have to practice silent meditation when you practice thought steal? Huh, of course, you don't count. You are the predecessor of the predecessor. Shan's chubby and slightly swollen face showed a bit of emotion as he said, there are gains and losses. Since he has mastered thought steal, it's better to practice silent meditation. Why? Ji Jing was curious. Whether it was the abbot or Shan, they had never used thought steal in front of their fellow disciples. You really want to know? Shan asked with a strange expression. Yes. Ji Jing quickly nodded. Shan's voice became low and deep as he said, of course I want to know. Why wouldn't I dare? What is this glutton trying to do? Ji Jing's expression changed and he hurriedly waved his hand and said, I didn't think so. Shan's mouth twitched slightly as he continued, Ba, he can really hear what I'm thinking. How can this be? I've secretly scolded him so many times, saying that he doesn't look like a living Buddha at all. Ji Jing opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he couldn't open his mouth. Shan kindly helped him to add on, I'll scram myself. Before he finished his sentence, Ji Jing lifted his sleeve, covered his face, and hurriedly left. Look, at this time, don't you wish that I had practiced silent meditation? Looking at Ji Jing's back, Shan shook his head and laughed. He wasn't angry at all that Ji Jing often slandered him in his heart. He shook his monk robe and went to the Bodhi courtyard. Just as he entered, he saw Wisdom King Ji Hai standing under two Bodhi trees. This famous young monk wore a white monk robe and had a handsome baby face. He often had a smile on his face, giving off a cheerful and friendly feeling. At this moment, he was looking at the top of the Bodhi trees, deep in thought. No one knew what he was thinking about. Shan didn't try to listen to what he was thinking. This wasn't only because of self-restraint, but also because of the other party's spiritual cultivation. When he first mastered thought steal, he had once listened to Senior Ji Hai's thoughts. He realized that Senior Ji Hai was a person with a unified mind. When he was cultivating, he would cultivate. When he was eating, he would eat. There were almost no distracting thoughts. Of course, there were times when he thought a lot, such as now. However, due to his strong spiritual cultivation, he could only hear the general idea and lacked the details. Sensing Shan's arrival, Ji Hai retracted his gaze and turned his head. He revealed a smile that was as bright as the sun. Just now, I suddenly felt a sense of disgust towards myself. Disgust what? Shan played along and asked. I can see through everything, but I still care about fame. I feel ashamed. Ji Hai shook his head and laughed, as though he was talking about someone else. Since I'm already in it, why not experience it to the fullest? Shan replied sharply. Why? Ji Hai frowned. Disgust. If you don't stand, how can you disgust? Shan said casually. He then said, the abbot wants us to go to the Clear Heart courtyard for an interview. Ji Hai nodded and followed Shan to the Clear Heart courtyard. After the interview, they went to the abbot's meditation room to report what had happened. You do it. It's more convenient, Ji Hai smiled and said to Shan. All right, Shan walked to the divine monk, Fa Yuan, and sat down on a cushion. The meditation room was silent. After a few minutes of staring at each other, Shan patted his robe and stood up. He broke the silence and said to Ji Hai, I'm done reporting. And I was taught a lesson. Chapter 700. Friday night, on the streets of Zhaofeng. Lu Qing controlled his facial muscles to change slightly as he walked among the bustling passers-by. It was as though he was a different person, and no one could see through his disguise. This was a real disguise technique completed by the realm of all-seeing God. Although he couldn't transform into someone else due to the bone structure, he could clearly distinguish himself. This isn't a provincial capital or a big city, but it's pretty lively here. Lu Qing muttered to himself. He looked around, occasionally taking out his phone to take pictures and share them with his wife, who had just arrived at the classroom. In order to prepare for the upcoming battle, the Longhu Club had arrived in Zhaofeng City 2 days earlier than usual. This gave them ample time to adjust their condition. After dinner, Lu Qing pondered over the corresponding video and decided to relax. He decided to take a stroll and become an incompetent traveler. Sigh, after all, I'm not a martial arts fanatic like Guojia. I still need to relax. He silently mocked himself. To his surprise, he found martial arts centers everywhere on the streets of Zhaofeng. There were even small advertisements on the telephone poles that read, "If you want to learn martial arts, go to a certain school." They were on par with the old Chinese doctor's treatment of psoriasis and body odor. Lu Qing was stunned for a few seconds. He recalled watching an interview program where Zhaofeng was jokingly referred to as the city of martial arts centers. Daxing Temple's reputation spread far and wide. There were many who wanted to learn martial arts from them, but only a small portion of them were chosen. The rest went to Shengqing Sect, Shushan Study, Longhu Club, and other martial arts centers to try their luck. Some stayed in the area to see if there were any other avenues. There were also many disciples who left Daxing Temple every year. They either returned to their hometowns, went to the big cities, or found business opportunities and stayed in Zhaofeng. They opened martial arts schools and centers, attracting large numbers of students in the name of orthodox disciples. As the scale of the martial arts school grew, the number of imitators increased as well. In order to compete with the state-led martial arts school system, the Daxing Temple tacitly approved of this practice. If there were any well-prepared talents in Zhaofeng's martial arts school, then based on the relationship between the lay disciples and the school, they would undoubtedly recommend them to the Daxing Temple. Even if they didn't like each other in the end, it was inevitable that there would be some lingering feelings between the two sides. In Jianghu, one more favor meant one more guarantee. After years of development, the number of martial arts schools and dojos in Zhaofeng City was astounding. Many students from other cities, as well as their study companions, had spurred the local real estate market, rental market, retail and wholesale, vegetable farming, livestock breeding, security personnel training, film and television companies, and other industries. They had contributed a lot to the city's GDP and tax revenue. Initially, Zhaofeng City's government was against such a change. They felt that it was against the country's policy, but they slowly turned a blind eye to it. They were even happy to see it happen. There were quite a few dojos in Huahai, Huacheng, Gaofen, and Mosheng, but they were still considered small businesses. In Zhaofeng, however, it was a mainstay industry. Interesting. Different cities have different characteristics. Lu Qing glanced around and saw signs such as Dabi Martial Arts School, Daisai Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, and Lower House of Daxing Temple. He found that their business was pretty good. They trained students during the day and worked out at night. Crack. 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 He took a few photos and was about to send them to Yanzhika when he saw a few city management officers approaching. They stretched out their hands and said sternly, "Delete the photos from just now." What's going on? Lu Qing was confused. His eyes were blank. He lowered his head and browsed through the photos. In the corner of one of the photos, he saw a city management officer punishing a street vendor. This is sputtering damage. They're afraid I'll post on Weibo and make a big news story. Lu Qing laughed. Why am I so confused with old ladies with red armbands and city management officers? They don't want to delete my photos, they want to find me. The corner of his mouth twitched. Before the city management officer could say anything, he backed up and disappeared into the sea of people. The city management officers were stunned at first, but they quickly chased after him. Back in the day, I was called flying on grass in the martial arts center, said one of them excitedly. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped. He had completely lost track of Lu Cheng in the sea of people. Forget it, we didn't do anything. His companion waved his hand and turned back. That guy must be an outstanding disciple from some martial arts center. That movement technique, TSK, I almost thought he disappeared into thin air. In Zhaofeng, the people selling barbecued skewers on the streets were all martial artists. They might even know things like iron sand palm or iron head. They were already used to it. At the intersection in the distance, Lu Cheng sensed that they didn't chase after him. He couldn't help but smile. He thought to himself, luckily I ran faster than the Western reporters. He wasn't affected by the previous situation. If he took it seriously, he would have lost. I was almost fine again. Lu Cheng sent a message to Yan Zhika, exaggerating. Why did I say, again? Yan Zhika had just finished her class. She asked him with an emoji, what bad things did you do again? Did you break someone's floor tile? Did you break a pitiful tree? Did you break a bicycle's chain? Why do you make it sound like I'm a destructive maniac? All I did was take a few photos. Look. Lu Cheng explained what had just happened and laughed with Ku for a while. When Yan Zhika returned to her studies, he continued to walk aimlessly. Suddenly, he saw a noodle shop that was very crowded. There were so many customers that they almost blocked the walkway. There were even people holding bowls and squatting by the roadside to eat. There were quite a few of them. Looks delicious. Lu Cheng walked over excitedly. He checked the reviews on the website and found that this shop was indeed famous. Those who had eaten there couldn't stop praising it. Just as he was about to squeeze in to order, he suddenly saw a customer squatting by the roadside. He looked familiar. When he looked over, he was shocked. F***ck, this isn't Coach Lu. Although he had also distorted his facial muscles and changed his appearance, that serious feeling, that arrogant temperament that was not pleasing to the eyes, was still so distinct and outstanding. He's actually squatting by the roadside to eat noodles? It's hard to imagine that Coach Lu would do something like this. Sensing someone's gaze, Lu Yen turned around abruptly and saw Lu Cheng. His face darkened. He turned his head and looked at the big bowl as if to say, "You've got the wrong person." The situation is a little awkward. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He followed the line to the cashier and paid first before waiting for his food. When he received the local specialty noodles, he was about to squat beside Lu Yen and pretend that they were the same. However, he realized that Coach Lu was nowhere to be found. All that was left was a pair of chopsticks and a clean bowl waiting for the waiter to take it away. I can almost hear Coach Lu roaring, "Who's the same as you?" Lu Cheng laughed self-deprecatingly. He squatted down and looked across while sucking on the noodles. Opposite was a row of shops selling Buddhist items. There were so-called consecrated Buddha statues, all kinds of prayer beads, Dharma weapons, and Buddhist scriptures. This was also the specialty of Zhaofeng. The noodles are really good. Lu Cheng praised in his heart. Too bad I didn't meet the living Buddha. Otherwise, I could have taken revenge for the treat last time, Daxing Temple, in a certain meditation room. Sher Shan rubbed his stomach and looked out the window. His mind was already wandering to the various snack stalls. In the end, there was only one reason that stopped him. No money. As one of the higher-ups of Daxing Temple, he responded to the abbot's call to live a simple and honest life. He didn't receive a salary. After all, his basic necessities were taken care of by the temple. As a monk, he had no other needs. This was also the reason why he liked to participate in professional matches and title matches. The prize money was always in his hands. However, he only kept a small portion of the prize money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so short of money. Sighing, Sher Shan rubbed the "thank you" letter in front of him. It was a gift he received for donating to needy children. I expected to last until next month. Who knew that I would be so greedy during the new year? He shook his head and laughed. He walked out of the room and knocked on Wisdom King Ji Hai's door. He had no qualms about borrowing money. Knock, knock, knock. Ji Hai walked out after the rhythmic knocks. Sher Shan was about to open his mouth when his gaze froze. Ji Hai was holding a similar thank you letter. "What's the matter?" asked Ji Hai. "Nothing, nothing." Sher Shan chuckled and turned to leave. "Go back to sleep, go back to sleep." A hidden meaning in his words. As expected of the reincarnated living Buddha, Ji Hai looked at Sher Shan's back with a serious expression, pondering the deep meaning of Zen. On Sunday afternoon, the Longhu Club members stepped onto the stone steps leading to Daxing Temple. Chapter 701. Daxing Temple's arena was a green stone square that was more than 300 meters in length and width. Around the square were 4 ancient pagodas. Some were made of wood, while others were made of stone. All of them exuded a peaceful, compassionate, and peaceful aura. They converged at the center and glowed brightly. It was as if the Buddhist kingdom had descended. It even calmed the hearts and minds of the spectators on the pagodas further away. One could imagine how much of an impact a martial artist's heart and mind would be when they stepped into this area. This was the home field advantage of Daxing Temple. Halfway up each of the 4 pagodas, there was a monk in a red kasaya sitting cross-legged on the glazed tiles. Some were old, some were middle-aged, some looked like withered trees, some had rosy cheeks, some were holding demon-subduing rings, and some were carrying long black whips. They were all eminent monks of Daxing Temple's Bodhi Yard. They were here to prevent the aftermath of battle or derailed fireballs from damaging the pagodas. Inside the pagodas were relics of past masters. Because of this, Daxing Temple didn't have to worry about the home field. No matter how damaged the green stone square was, it was still within the scope of repair. Fighting in such a place feels disrespectful to the remains of the ancestors. What is Daxing Temple thinking? Lu Qing stood by the window of the Zen hall that was used as the away team's changing room. He looked at the pure land of the Buddhist kingdom. Ning Zitong's hair was tied up, revealing her slender neck without any wrinkles. She chuckled. "Everything is empty. How can you be a monk if you care about this? Besides, isn't it a tradition for monks to borrow the relics of their ancestors?" "That's true." Lu Qing retracted his gaze and took out his phone. "Looks like I'm just a layman. I'm not that enlightened." At this moment, in the simple home team's changing room, the receptionist monk, Ji Jing, knocked on the door and entered. He put his palms together and bowed. "Abbot, the supervisor is rushing for the list of fighters." Due to the drone filming along the way, the haggard Faiyuan didn't wear his paper tags to maintain his image as a divine monk. However, this didn't affect his communication with others. Sher Shan smiled and sat cross-legged across from him. They were less than 5 meters apart. After another round of staring at each other in silence, Sher Shan stood up and said, "That's right. Let's leave it to fate today." Leave it to fate. There's a deep meaning behind this. Wisdom King, Ji Hai, pondered seriously. He had another nickname on the internet, Elder Tang, which meant that he was handsome and dumb, like Tang Sanzang. He was deeply loved by fairies, and they couldn't wait to swallow him. Sher Shan glanced at him and sighed helplessly. "Sigh, it seems like I'm the only normal physical invulnerability expert in Daxing Temple." He opened it and saw the 2 words, Fa Yuan. He quickly chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. With that, Daxing Temple's order of appearance was decided. Divine Monk Fa Yuan, Supreme Class Ji Hai, and Living Buddha Sher Shan. Ji Hai currently had the title of Supreme Class, so he could use it when he submitted the name list. The substitutes were Fire Dragon Wang Xiaoshuang and the others. In the away team's changing room, Lu Yen finished changing. He looked around and said, "It's undeniable that without Optimus Prime and Dragon King, our strength is slightly weaker than Daxing Temple's. Since we're going to be the weak against the strong, we have to act as if we're the weak against the strong." His words sounded like a rational analysis, but at the same time, he was trying to provoke Lu Qing. Without waiting for him to speak, He stared into Lu Cheng's eyes and said, "If you're going to be the weak against the strong, how would you fight?" Lu Cheng deliberated for a dozen seconds and said, "If you don't know your opponent well enough, you'll definitely roam around the battle. You'll exhaust your opponent while observing and waiting. Once there's an opportunity, you'll grab hold of it and try for a combo. If that doesn't work, you'll quickly widen the distance and repeat the process. That's basically the theory. Now, let's apply it to the overall situation." Lu Yen nodded slightly. The three physical and vulnerability experts of Daxing Temple aren't that different from each other. Any order of appearance is possible. We'll use the fact that we don't know our opponent well enough to start with a roaming battle. We'll exhaust as many as we can. Empress Luo, you'll be in charge of this. No problem, replied Ning Zidong with a smile. After the roaming battle, we'll seize the opportunity to burst out. I'm not as good as you in this aspect. Lu Yen looked at Lu Cheng and admitted frankly. As for the final response to different situations, I've been around for 20 to 30 years. I'm more experienced than you. Coach, are you trying to say that you're old but strong? Lu Cheng laughed in his heart and made a sarcastic remark. On the surface, he nodded solemnly. All right. After the arrangements were made and the name list was handed in, there were still 20 minutes before the start of the match. They were either exercising, recuperating, or seeking support from afar. Lu Cheng put away his phone with a satisfied look. Just as he was about to close his eyes and rest, he heard Guojia whisper, "If you were to fight against Divine Monk Fa Yuan, Supreme Class Ji Hai, and Living Buddha Shi Shan, what would you do during the conversation time? What's the difference between them? When did the martial arts fanatic become so talkative?" Lu Cheng turned his head in surprise and saw Guojia looking out of the window. Her mind was in a whirl. She seemed to be imagining how she would fight against Fa Yuan, Ji Hai, and Shi Shan because she couldn't go on stage. Lu Cheng pondered for a moment before replying, "I've never fought Divine Monk Fa Yuan and Wisdom King before, so I don't know much about them. If I were to meet Living Buddha, during the conversation time, I'd call out the names of dishes like steamed lamb, steamed bear's paw, steamed deer tail, roasted duck, roasted chicken, roasted goose." That guy was obviously a foodie. He used to be a meat eater, but now he was forced to be a vegetarian. Calling out the names of dishes would hit him right where it hurt. Just as Lu Cheng was feeling smug about his flash of inspiration, Guojia turned to him and asked curiously, "Did you learn crosstalk in the past? Why else would he call out the names of dishes so smoothly?" Lu Cheng was dumbfounded. After a long while, he replied, "I've always liked to listen to crosstalk." In the middle of the night in Connecticut, Yenjika saw that the time for the match was almost up and the seconds kept ticking. She turned on her computer and searched for the information. Report to calm down. In a dormitory of Songqing University. He pushed open the door and saw Yen Shaoling applying facial cream. Box, come and comfort me. I told them before that I've been using my facial cream super fast lately because I'm too hardworking. They laughed at me for having a big face, sob. Yen Shaoling deliberately exaggerated with her childish voice. He glanced at her and said, "It's not a big face, it's a fat face. You've put on a lot of weight recently. Bro, that hurts." Yen Shaoling was dumbfounded. That's not the point. The point is, why did you put on your facial cream at 2 or 3 in the afternoon? He was puzzled. Yen Shaoling deliberately sighed and said, "I was too nervous last night and couldn't sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. I was forced to eat lunch by Jin at noon. My skin is not in good condition and I'm very sleepy. I thought I'd put on a facial mask, put on some cream, eat something, and then sleep directly until tomorrow morning." "What are you nervous about?" He asked curiously. "Isn't it because Senior is finally facing the most outstanding martial artist of this generation, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai? I can't help but feel a little nervous." Yen Shaoling suddenly jumped up and said, The competition in the afternoon. I forgot about the competition in the afternoon." I forgot about it in my sleep. He sighed helplessly and muttered to herself as she watched her hurriedly look for a computer and search for a live streaming website, knocking over books and bumping her head from time to time. She was in so much pain that tears welled up in her eyes. I forgot about it too. One is marked by the company one keeps. At 3:10 in the afternoon, the shadow of the pagoda on the limestone square began to elongate and was covered in a layer of gold. The referee walked to the center and waved to the changing rooms on both sides to signal the start of the competition. It's Divine Monk Fa Yuan. Ning Zitong glanced at the name list and pushed open the door with a smile. Why does Sister Ning look so happy and excited? Lu Qing muttered to himself. Beside him, Lu Yan's mouth twitched slightly as he explained, this is her hobby. This is one of her hobbies. She always tries to break Divine Monk Fa Yuan's vow of silence during conversation. Why does she sound like a little girl? Lu Qing found it funny. But then again, after he mastered thought steal, Divine Monk Fa Yuan's silent meditation should have been perfected as well. Did something go wrong? Chapter 702. Ning Zitong stood next to the referee. She looked at the divine monk, Fa Yuan, who was wearing a red kasaya, walking toward her slowly. She was feeling nostalgic and amused. Duels like this always reminded her of the time when she had just reached physical invulnerability. Back then, Fa Yuan wasn't the abbot of Daxing Temple yet, but he had been practicing silent meditation for many years. She still had the mentality of a young girl and tried to provoke him to speak. Just as she was about to succeed, the referee announced the start of the duel, leaving her with regrets. Thus, the first attempt, the second attempt, the third attempt. Time passed just like that, hastening one's aging. Unknowingly, the girl with a radiant face and peerless beauty was already middle-aged, and she was speeding along the road of 50 years. Perhaps only this hobby that she had persisted for so many years could allow her to temporarily regain that feeling of a young girl, even if she had always failed and never succeeded. I'm not trying to provoke him to speak, I'm talking about my youth. Ning Zitong sighed to herself. She saw the haggard Fa Yuan stop at the designated spot, about 30 meters away from her. At such a distance, she wasn't afraid that he could hear her thoughts through telepathy. According to the experience of many seniors and fellow practitioners, it could be determined that the effective range of telepathy wouldn't exceed a radius of 10 meters, or even smaller. At this moment, the referee approved the time, raised his right hand, and announced, duel time begins. Ning Zitong looked like she had been waiting for a long time. She couldn't wait and said, Master Abbot, long time no see. As soon as she said this, the surrounding audience and onlookers in front of the screen started to mock her. Not to mention the previous duel between Longhu Club and Daxing Temple, or the recent title match. You met Divine Monk Fa Yuan at the celebratory banquet of the previous top professional league competition. It hasn't even been 2 months. Are you saying this on purpose to get Divine Monk Fa Yuan to refute you? We won't fall for such tricks. Fa Yuan lowered his head. His divine light was restrained, and his expression was wooden. He only nodded his head slightly. Ning Zitong didn't care and continued, Grandmaster Abbot, I have a doubt that has been in my heart for a while. I hope you can give me some pointers. I've been thinking about it. Buddhists practice silent meditation in order to reduce verbal karma and karma. If a divine monk who practices silent meditation happens to know a secret, and if he quickly tells it to the world, thousands of lives can be saved, would he choose to open his mouth or not? She knew that Buddhists who were good at thinking would definitely have considered this. Mahayana had its own answer, and Hinayana had its own logic. It was not difficult for the abbot in front of her. However, similar questions could be easily used by others, especially now that they were in a live broadcast. If Fa Yuan did not answer, it would easily affect the reputation of Daxing Temple and himself. After that, even if there were Buddhist laymen who answered the questions on the internet, it would inevitably lead to a war of words. This was the characteristic of the current information society. Fa Yuan turned a deaf ear to him and maintained his previous posture, as if he was a tree that had lost its life. As expected of an eminent monk who practices silent meditation. He can really keep his composure. Ning Zitong thought for a moment and smiled. If you don't want to answer, then forget it. I know you must be struggling in your heart. She deliberately discredited Fa Yuan, but he still didn't answer. Even his breathing rhythm and the depth of his gaze didn't change. After a few more words of discredit, Ning Zitong respected her status and didn't pursue the matter further. She smiled sweetly and said, I heard that after mastering thought steal, Grandmaster's silent meditation is considered complete. Why are you still not speaking? Did something go wrong in the middle? Did you break some commandment? Did you accidentally open your mouth and postpone it? Fa Yuan didn't move an inch in the face of such malicious speculation. There was no change in his emotions at all. Ning Zitong, who had tried a few methods to no avail, saw that time was running out and gave up. She collected her emotions and adjusted her state of mind. At this moment, she saw Fa Yuan's eyes move. He was like a creature that had come to life after hibernation. 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 Did he fall asleep just now? Ning Zitong suddenly had such a ridiculous idea. She was momentarily dumbfounded, not knowing whether to be angry or amused. The referee didn't give her any time to think. He raised his right arm and swung it down. Begin. Fa Yuan's sallow skin suddenly glowed with a golden light. He raised his right palm and pressed it into the air in front of him. Ning Zitong's upper body didn't move. She moved horizontally like a ghost. A deep and clear palm print appeared on the bluestone ground behind her. There were no cracks around it, as if a metal object had been dug out by a sharp weapon. Vajra realm, Vajra seal, power that separates mountains. This technique had spawned many secret techniques, but only a few could do it as easily as Fa Yuan. Ning Zitong took a step forward. Suddenly, a strong wind started blowing around her. The wind was dyed black and became darker. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. While circling around Fa Yuan, she suddenly spun her body and turned into a spiral drill. She attacked her opponent at high speed and threw out a series of faint black shadows that blended in with the wind. They fiercely pounced on Fa Yuan, covering her original form. At the same time, drops of rain condensed. They either fell or floated horizontally, enveloping Fa Yuan. The color of the rain was close to black, but it was a deep red that had settled for a long time. Dark sect, sanguinary rain. The wind could tear one's mind and body apart, while the rain hid poison. The illusions were both real and fake, and the punches and kicks were hidden within. To everyone's surprise, Ning Zitong took the initiative to attack at the beginning of the match instead of just wandering around. This was the true nature of the Ghost King. The world seemed to darken. Fa Yuan's eyes flashed, and a round light appeared behind his head. It was a bright, clear, and bright light that illuminated the surroundings. This round light seemed to hide the 5 Buddhas that symbolized the 5 great wisdom. As soon as they appeared, all the phantoms naturally disappeared without a trace. All the poisonous rain quickly disintegrated and lost its original color. The combination of Vajra Sect's wisdom fist seal, Fa Yuan's Prajna Bodhisattva body, and thought steel. The high-speed rotating drill bit was revealed just as it was about to hit the other party. It was firmly hit by Fa Yuan's broad and long pale golden palm, and it did not deviate at all. Bam! Pale golden light scattered as Ning Zitong flew back. Before she landed, she changed direction in midair like a real ghost and dodged the follow-up attacks, increasing the distance between them. Lu Cheng was amazed by such a movement technique. Even though he had mesmerizing snow steps and wheels of wind and fire, he couldn't compare to flickering light passing shadow, which specialized in movement techniques. While Xuanpa of Yanzhao sect was fast, it was too direct and not flexible enough. Perhaps only the Wind sect, which also specialized in movement techniques, could achieve such a level. Chihuahua might be able to do something similar in the future. Lu Qing thought to himself. They were both beautiful, strong, and skilled in movement techniques. No wonder Sister Ning and Chihuahua's master had been at odds with each other for so many years. It was hard not to compare them. P.S. I was too busy thinking about the dialogue and didn't have time to think about the fight. Sorry for the lack of words. Chapter 703. Seeing Ning Zidong retreat with flickering light and shadow, Fayuan didn't give up. He waited in place. With a wave of his red kasaya sleeve, he took a step in the general direction. Bam! 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 With every step he took, the air beneath his feet would condense into lotuses that reflected a glazed light. They seemed to be supporting and bouncing at the same time, allowing Fayuan to complete the movement that exceeded shrinking ground with ease. He quickly closed in on Phantom King Ning Zidong. Vajra sect, lotus seal, lotus steps. Seeing this, Lu Qing found it funny in the changing room. According to Dragon King, these guys only knew how to show off. Why did they have to make the condensed air take the form of lotuses? The most basic, iron plate, shape was enough. The effect was almost the same. Using more energy and mind to sculpt a lotus was a pure waste. Lu Qing still remembered Empress Luo being stunned for a while after hearing Dragon King's comments. Her mouth twitched. I won't argue with a barbarian, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fayuan was fast, but Ning Zidong was fast. Her movements were smooth, agile, and strange, like a shadow moving at high speed. Although the distance between them was sometimes close and sometimes far, most of the time it depended on whether Empress Luo would attempt to attack. After failing to catch up, Fayuan stopped and stood calmly in place. He wasn't anxious at all, just like when he was practicing silent meditation. The round light behind his head that hid the 5 Buddha phantoms retracted into his body and appeared in his left and right irises. It dyed the color of his eyes with a glazed luster, clearly reflecting everything he saw and obtained. If one were to observe carefully, they would be shocked to find that Fayuan's eyes reflected not only what he saw but also what was behind him and above him. There were no blind spots. Vajra sect, wisdom seal. What you feel is what you see. The Buddha's aura that appeared from the combination of wisdom fist seal, prajna bodhisattva body, and thought steel was a huge burden even for a divine monk at Fayuan's level. He couldn't maintain it for 10 seconds at most, and then he had to rest for a while before he could use it again. Thump thump thump. Amidst the illusory footsteps, Ning Zidong suddenly closed in, as if she was about to attack. Her gaze was restrained, without any ripples. She concentrated on suppressing the various thoughts in her mind so that her opponent wouldn't hear them. Just as Fayuan was about to unleash his Vajra palm, Ning Zidong suddenly pulled her body back and flashed out of his thought steel range. She was like a robot following a predetermined sequence. However, Fayuan's palms, which were suffused with a faint golden luster, instantly became gentle. He flicked his 10 fingers together, and like a lotus flower blooming, he shot out 10 brilliant and pure-colored glass divine lights. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 10 beams of light crisscrossed, but they did not directly shoot at Empress Luo. Instead, they sealed off the space she could dodge to her left, right, and up. Following which, Fayuan clasped his palms together, opened them, and pushed them forward. An endless amount of Buddha's light burst forth and surged towards Ning Zidong, as if trying to drown her. The great light scripture of Buddha, Buddha's light illumination. At this moment, Ning Zidong did not choose to dodge or defend against the 10 beams of light. Instead, she lowered her waist, got into a horse stance, and used force concentration. She threw her right fist forward to take on the Buddha's light head-on. Her fist was as white as jade, but the surroundings were dark and gloomy. The darkness thickened instantly, as if a monster lurking in the depths of the universe had opened its huge mouth to devour the light. Sizzle. The Buddha's light was not as strong as it appeared. It kept dispersing and disappearing into the darkness, retreating little by little. At this point, Lu Qing, who was not on the battlefield and could not sense the subtle danger, suddenly understood that Fayuan's Buddha's light illumination was a feint and a trap. The 10 beams of Buddha's light illumination were the real deal. Once Empress Luo dodged, it would be easy. If she dodged to the side and blocked at most 4 beams in one direction, she would be in danger and fall into a passive state, losing the advantage of her movement. This was different from the many variations of the Buddha's light illumination in the past. It was a technique that Fa Yuan had only recently perfected. Who knew that he would not be able to fool Ning Zitong? Not only that, but she had also taken advantage of the weakness of the Buddha's light to attack. Sizzle. The darkness expanded rapidly as the Buddha's light was extinguished one after another. Ning Zitong's figure kept dispersing, finally turning into an overwhelming number of shadows that attacked Fa Yuan. Like countless bats that had been awakened in a dark cave, it was hard to distinguish between reality and illusion. The 8th move of the dark sect, disintegration. Darkness reassembly. This was a powerful defensive move, but it could also be used for offense. Every shadow contained a portion of Empress Luo's power. It was half real and half fake. The dark sect techniques of the Longhu Club and the dark sect techniques of the Guanwai League came from the same source, the Dark Infinite Sutra. However, after generations of physical invulnerability experts from both parties perfected and created new techniques, including the inheritance of this technique before it fell into the hands of the military, the styles, characteristics, details, and some of the moves were quite different. Furthermore, the former lacked the 9th move, Dark Devouring Sunday Descent of Eternal Night. The distance between the two parties closed rapidly. Fa Yuan had no time to form the Buddha's light of wisdom. His skinny body suddenly bulged with muscles, the surface of which was flowing with a faint golden glow. His face was dark gold in color, solemn and dignified. The 2 circles of light in his eyes became clearer and clearer. At this moment, Fa Yuan used his fundamental move, Prajna Bodhisattva Body, and used it to push the wisdom fist seal to its limits. Seeing this, Lu Qing felt like laughing. It wasn't that he thought there was something wrong with Fa Yuan's reaction. It was just that his current appearance reminded him of the muscular Tang Sanzang picture that had been popular on the internet for a while. Ryukong, dodge. Let me do it. Silently, a layer of faint golden flames burned around Fa Yuan's body. It circled and breathed, sacred and dignified. The shadows of power that Ning Zitong had created were immediately ignited the moment they came into contact with the flames. They quickly disappeared without a trace. Womb Sect, Guardian Azure Fire. Sizzle. Bam! With a loud explosion, the figure of the Ghost King, Ning Zitong, slowly appeared. She floated in midair, her legs spinning wildly as she drilled towards Fa Yuan. However, she was hit squarely by Fa Yuan's Prajna punch and was stopped. At this moment, the remaining shadows retracted and gathered around Ning Zitong. She used the momentum to create something out of nothing. Straightening her back, she went from a half-lying position to a sitting position. Her palms moved in the darkness as she slapped at her opponent's temples. She also hit a downward momentum to prevent her opponent from retracting his neck and bending his knees. Everything before was just a setup. This was the killer move that she had been preparing for a long time. At this moment, Fa Yuan's body was surrounded by guardian azure flames as he blocked his opponent's legs with his fists. His momentum was already spent, and he didn't seem to have the time to defend or dodge this ordinary slap. At this critical juncture, the veins on his neck popped out and expanded like a balloon. He looked like a faint golden python that had swallowed a huge prey. Bam! He lowered his head, swung his neck, and exerted all his strength. He didn't dodge or block, only attack. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed. Fa Yuan used the crown of his head to hit Ning Zitong's right palm. He knocked her back, causing the slap on his left to miss. His scarred head was a faint golden color, but it was actually dark and iron-like. Daxing's secret art, Iron Head Technique. This was a common technique that Fa Yuan had casually practiced in the past. He didn't expect it to have such an effect now. Of course, without the force of the python swallow, the Iron Head technique alone wouldn't be able to block the Ghost King's slap. Even so, when the color faded, there was still a beautiful handprint on the side of Fa Yuan's head. There was a dark precipitate inside, like green but not green, and contained poison. Bam! Fa Yuan stepped on the lotus and took the initiative to distance himself. His eyes were a little dizzy. Ning Zitong's attack didn't land. She immediately calmed down and started to fight again. Both parties went back and forth for nearly half an hour. The square was filled with marks, and darkness and Buddha's light alternated. This was the situation that Ning Zitong was best at. She slowly but surely wore down Fa Yuan. However, under the mental influence of the relics in the pagoda, her every move was more strenuous than usual. Fa Yuan, on the other hand, could silently use the simplified swastika formula to recover part of his condition. The scales of victory started to tilt in his favor. Just as it was about to be too late, Ning Zitong, who was moving in the distance, suddenly smiled. She formed a seal with her hands and said in a low voice, "Wholeness." Lu Cheng's 9 words formula was collected together with the military. They complemented each other. Since Ning Zitong had accumulated so many merits, it was only natural that she would choose some secret techniques to practice. Once she used the wholeness formula, Ning Zitong immediately felt invigorated. She didn't look tired at all. This time, she didn't move around. Instead, she closed in on Fa Yuan and launched a series of attacks. Bam! 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 After repeated collisions, Fa Yuan's dark sect force, which had been accumulating in his body for a long time, gradually increased. It made it difficult for him to exert his strength, making it hard for him to breathe. Bam! Seizing this opportunity, Ning Zitong turned and appeared behind Fa Yuan like a ghost. Her palm hovered behind Fa Yuan's head. While Fa Yuan was dizzy, he heard the other party's clear and mature voice transmission. "Big monk, you've lost." Ning Zitong seemed to have returned to the past. She didn't call him old monk, but big monk. At this moment, the referee raised his right hand and announced the result. Ning Zitong wins the first round. Just as he finished speaking, Wisdom King, Ji Hai, who was in the home team's changing room, stood up and walked out. The core of Daxing Temple's forbidden territory was the Vairocana body. Fa Yuan practiced the righteous body, the Prajna Bodhisattva body. Ji Hai practiced the Vairocana body of the Vairocana body, the body of the demon vanquishing body, and the unmovable body of the Wisdom King. Chapter 704. The Akalanatha was known as the King of Wisdom Kings. It was adept at subduing demons and devils. It was also known as the Vairocana's enraged form. A martial art named after it was no small matter. It had the weakening effect of indestructible Vajra, cultivated force, and gathered Buddha's aura. It had no obvious shortcomings. It was so powerful that only a handful of people could master it. Throughout the history of Daxing Temple, only a handful of people had mastered the Akalanatha. Ji Hai, the Wisdom King, was one of them. Ji Hai didn't wear a red kasaya. Instead, he wore a loose yellow monk's robe. Handsome and radiant, he walked step by step to the center of the arena. Many in the audience cheered and declared that they would lick the screen. When he met Abbot Fa Yuan along the way, he calmly put his palms together and bowed in respect, maintaining his tranquility. Fa Yuan returned to his withered state. He silently returned the bow and nodded slightly. At this moment, Lu Cheng was recalling the match just now. He said thoughtfully, Sister Ning had already thought of what to do before she entered the range of thought steal. She turned her thoughts into instincts to avoid being eavesdropped on. Lu Yen turned to look at him and said with a straight face, "That's what they mean by the hand being faster than the brain. Coach, you have to be cultured. According to the novels I've read, that's called lawless." "No, it's called thoughtlessness." Lu Cheng complained to himself. "Ugh, if Coach knew thought steal, he would have killed me sooner or later, but, sigh, if the opponent was the talker, I could have said those words without holding back. We could have dissed each other and entertained each other." For a moment, Lu Cheng missed Little Ming. At this moment, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, was already standing in his designated position. The referee announced the start of the second match. Lu Yen and the rest shifted their gazes back to the arena. Although Ning Zitong had waited until the end of the match to use the wholeness formula, this secret technique stimulated the body and squeezed out her potential. It came quickly, but it also drained quickly. The last few rounds of bloody attacks had taken quite a toll on her. Coupled with the injuries accumulated from the bitter battle and the suppression from the surrounding pagodas, she was less than half of her peak condition. Therefore, she didn't try to start the match like she did with Feiyuan. Instead, she used her movement techniques and entered the familiar and adept phase of guerrilla warfare. In the previous match, she was able to fight Feiyuan for more than half an hour. Firstly, the endurance of a physical invulnerability expert was much higher than that of an inhuman. Secondly, most of the time, she was guerrilla warfare and didn't engage in close-quarters combat. Hence, she didn't expend much of her energy. Also, to Empress Luo, as long as she didn't run or turn. As she was mostly in guerrilla warfare. And didn't clash and she didn't have much energy consumption. The subsequent development of the battle gave the audience the illusion that it was still Empress Luo fighting the abbot. This was because Wisdom King, Ji Hai, was also firmly defending. He wasn't arrogant or rash, and he was focused as one. He would deal with whatever came his way. If they didn't come, he would just stay where he was and watch. Of course, Ji Hai wasn't purely passive. At times, he would gather the Buddha's aura and shoot out laser-like rays. At other times, he would hold a glazed ball of light in his palm and shoot it out horizontally. His timing was always perfect. It was as if he had a natural ability to judge changes. The speed of the sun's shooting ray was absolutely terrifying. There were a few times when Ning Zitong was forced to dodge and almost hit. As such, she was gradually approaching the end of her tether. She had reached the warning line where she could go all out. Between failing miserably or giving it a try, Ghost King Ning Zitong chose the latter. Without making a sound, she made a high-speed turn and closed in on her opponent from an unbelievable angle. The surrounding sky quickly darkened, as if a cluster of black curtains had descended, creating a scene where there was no starlight, no moon, and a violent wind. It was a terrifying scene. In such an environment, Ning Zitong's speed increased again. Her force was also stimulated. Dark Sect 7th Style, Dark Moon High Wind. Dark Moon High Wind Night, the time for murder and arson. This was a unique skill that increased one's strength and weakened one's enemy. In gaming terms, it was a buff to oneself and a debuff to the enemy. Bam, bam, bam. Wisdom King Ji Hai welcomed a direct confrontation. His body glowed with a pure gold color as he resisted the corrosion of the environment. Using his Vajra fist, he continuously knocked back his opponent. He was as steady as a mountain and as steady as the ground. After an intense battle, Ning Zitong was completely drained. She was sent flying by the Vajra seal that could split mountains and break rivers. She fell back and almost lost her balance. Ji Hai didn't chase after her. Instead, he retracted his fist and looked over calmly. Ning Zitong swung her arm and shook her head at the referee. Round 2, Ji Hai of Supreme Class wins. The referee announced the result and shouted out Ji Hai's current title. A super class expert above the first class. Even though Empress Luo had already fought a fierce battle, Ji Hai was able to defeat her so easily. This was enough to show Ji Hai's strength. He truly stood in the ranks of title contenders like Dong Baxian and Lu Yongyuan, and he wasn't even 28 years old yet. After saluting, Ning Zitong turned and left. The tatters on her martial arts suit and the blood-stained wounds didn't diminish her elegance. Instead, they gave her a charm that set her apart from other girls. Lu Cheng had already stood up. After taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door to the changing room and walked over to Empress Luo. When they met, he gave her a thumbs up as a sign of respect. "You don't have to praise me so exaggeratedly," Ning Zitong said in annoyance. Even though she said that, she couldn't stop the smile on her face. It was beautiful and charming. If I really believed your polite words, it would be a waste of little fairy's guidance over the past few years. Lu Qing chuckled to himself as he looked at the center of the limestone square. Wisdom King Ji Hai stood there. His features were handsome, his face was powdered, and his lips were rosy. However, he didn't look feminine at all. Other than his bald head, he didn't have any flaws in his appearance. A handsome man would still look handsome even if he shaved his head. Lu Qing chuckled helplessly. Shaking his head, he gathered his thoughts and stepped into the limestone square. The moment he stepped in, he immediately felt his desire to fight and the trembling of his body calm down. His surroundings were quiet and peaceful, as though there shouldn't be any conflicts. Just like the effects of the confrontation formula. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and felt the influence of the many sariras in the pagodas around him. He had to constantly divert a portion of his attention to fight against them. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Qing calmly walked to the designated spot. Using this opportunity, he easily entered the visualization state. Stroke by stroke, he outlined the ancient seal text. Fighting. Once the word was formed, his qi and blood surged. His willpower was so condensed that it shot into the sky. A sense of heroism that would never admit defeat or compromise surged through him. Opposite him was the Wisdom King, the most powerful heavenly son of the present age. Opposite him was a true top-notch expert who had defeated Warrior Sage and Dragon King. Opposite him was the benchmark that others used to measure him, the target that he set for himself. I've been looking forward to this battle for a long time. In the room of an unknown streamer. Kai Zhongming sighed emotionally. Finally, Lu Qing and Wisdom King have met. Even though Wisdom King has already fought for half a round, and both of them aren't at their peak, this match still has a strong symbolic meaning. As for the specific meaning, I won't say much about it. However, I need to remind everyone that you can't judge a hero based on a single victory or defeat. This isn't ancient times, where the Dragon King and Warrior Sage lost before. Who hasn't lost before? No matter who loses later, don't be in a hurry to make a judgment. The result is important, but it isn't the only thing. The actual situation is what is reflected in the details of the match. Just as he finished speaking, he saw some comments on the bullet screen. Why do I feel like you're defending Lu Qing and speaking up for him in advance? Yeah. You're teammates in Songqing University Martial Arts Club, roommates in the same dorm. Not objective enough. Kai Zhongming made an exaggerated expression and snorted. Do I look like that kind of person? Look at my looks, how righteous I am. My motto is I side with reason, not kinship. As he finished speaking, he lifted a piece of cardboard with the words, Lu Qing, written on it. Come, little sunflower's lesson is starting. Everyone, repeat after me. Kai Zhongming pointed at the two words and said. Dao, Li, reason. The bullet screen went silent at first, then many comments flooded in. Lu Qing equals reason, I like how shameless you are. Not bad, your commentary style is very refreshing. Looking at these replies, the corners of Kai Zhongming's mouth curled up as he sighed inwardly. If Cheng was here to cooperate, I would have a lot more to say. But now, I can't find a reason to. Looks like I have to work hard on my one-word skills. At 4:00 in the early spring, the sun was setting in the west and the light was starting to dim. Lu Qing had just adjusted his body and focused on Wisdom King, Ji Hai's figure when the referee raised his hand and shouted, Begin. Bam! Light blue flames spewed out from Lu Qing's back and feet, launching him forward. His fist went straight for Ji Hai's face. He didn't make any turns and instead launched a frontal attack as he had been longing for. How can I not weigh him up first? Ji Hai didn't dodge. Instead, he took a deep breath and his muscles bulged, swelling his monk robe. His skin was dark green, but it wasn't evil or demonic. It was holy and majestic, a strange contrast to his handsome face. Unmovable body of the Wisdom King. In the live streaming website, bullet screen after bullet screen appeared excitedly. Elder Tang is here. The mighty Elder Tang who defeated Sun Wukong single-handedly. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.